Scenario 4 11:34 p.m. 8 hours until dawn 9 delvers remaining a broken bar. They had been walking for so long the tunnels had blurred into one long, grey vein. Sometimes the ceiling pinched low enough that they had to crouch down to get through. Other times it arched so high their flashlights couldn't find the ceiling, just yawning blackness leering at them. They even heard an underground river somewhere in the distance. The walls sweated, slick with mildew, drops plinking in little syncopations that echoed across the caverns. They couldn't pinpoint where it originated. Kate had been counting the minutes like prayer beads. An hour, maybe more, by her last measure. The signs they passed didn't help much. The deeper they went, the more they sprouted arrows painted in cracked white, pointing off into places Kate could vaguely picture. Cedar Lake, the cabin, summer camp, gas station, salvage yard, trail bar, broken bar, a broken bar, and so on. The words looked like warnings disguised as directions. There were a lot of signs pointing toward the cabin. Most of the intersection and junctions they passed had a sign to it, but she kept her eyes locked on only one name: the last resort. The manor. Always the manor. 20 minutes later, Suraj broke out of frustration and exhaustion. They had been walking in silence ever since they left the farmhouse. "We need to stop, just 5 minutes. Please." His breath came in wet, ugly pools. "I haven't had this much exercise since I don't even know." Kate bristled, her body half wanting to keep moving just to spite him. But the ache in her calves, the dull jackhammer behind her eyes, said otherwise. She exhaled, nodded once, and slid down the wall. Unbeknownst to them, Rallan was following their scent, keeping a close watch but not too close that they would sense his presence. He was herding them to the manor. If one of them broke off to the other locations, he'd resume the chase. And the game. Vivian's flashlight beam hovered on Xavier. He sat hunched on a rock like a gargoyle, his injured leg stretched stiff as a board, refusing to bend. The light caught the waxy cast of his face, ear skin pale, lips dulled, forehead glazed with sweat. A bead slipped down his temple, curving into the cracks beside his mouth. Vivian stepped closer and pressed the back of her hand on Xavier's forehead. She reeled it back as if it burned her. "Dude, you're burning up." "I'm fine," Xavier muttered, his jaw locking down around the word. His breath sounded thick with a clogged rattle, like he'd swallowed half the damp tunnel air and it had stuck in his lungs. He kept moving his leg, shifting it in small agitated jerks, as if the bone itself were trying to crawl out of his skin. His shirt was soaked dark with sweat around the chest and back. His hands trembled on his knee, a nervous, fevered tremor, and when Vivian leaned closer, she thought she saw the faintest shadow at his nails, darker than before, like bruises blooming there. "Hey," Vivian said softly, "we can rest longer. If you need more time, I'm sure she'll consider." Viv, he gritted his teeth. "I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Once we're out of here, I'll shake it off easy." She frowned. "What if it's blood poisoning?" "It's not blood poisoning." "How do you know?" "Have you had it before?" He rolled his eyes. "No." "Then how would you?" "Viv, please." "Enough. Just let me rest, okay?" She clamped her mouth shut, pressing her lips thin. But her eyes lingered on him as if she could will him back to health. "Fine, you can do whatever." She walked back to her corner and sat across from her brother. Xavier winced, hunched over to pull the hem of his pants upward, just to see if the wound was infected like Vivian assumed. He made sure that Vivian couldn't see it. He stared at the bite. From the commotion in the farmhouse, when the creature grabbed his ankle, he didn't realize it bit him. Cursing his stupidity, he wished he was already at the hospital, jammed with as much tetanus and rabies shots they had in their fridge. How many needles will that take to stop the infection? He pulled down his pants to hide the wound. He couldn't look at it any longer. Watching them from above, I could only shake my head in disappointment. I've seen too many zombie movies to know that hiding bite wounds were super cliche and never ended well for the person and the people he was around with. Although not a zombie infection, but lycanthropy was just as bad. A broken bar. I was willing to see how this would pan out for them. I wasn't getting my hopes up. 5 minutes later, they were walking again further into the tunnel. Suraj complained quietly to himself. Mostly quiet. 11:59 p.m. Broken bar. 12 o'clock a.m. 7 hours until dawn. 9 delvers remaining a broken bar. The bell struck midnight across the manor. Kevin and the others had shoved a heavy oak dresser against the double doors, wedging one of the leather armchairs under the handles for good measure in the smoking room. Ever since Ray died, they had barricaded themselves in this room for more than an hour now. Kevin stood by the window, the barricaded glass mocking him with its black reflection. Wire mesh, steel bars, locked tight from the inside by the manor's security grid. He had tried prying it open, even smashing a chair leg against the corner, but the metal didn't so much as budge or fold. Bulletproof, bomb-proof, bastard-proof, whatever. Sheila sat cross-legged on the rug while leaning against the couch, fiddling with her necklace like it was a rosary, her face hard in the glow of the fireplace that turned on an hour ago, just like it did at the library. Nina stood at the corner furthest from the door and leaned against a study table, arms folded, thinking. Daryl had claimed the settee, slouched down, jittering his knee like he was trying to kick his way out through the upholstery. Finally, Kevin broke the silence. We can't sit here all night. Why not? Nina shot back. This is the safest room we found so far. Doors are blocked. Windows are blocked. We just stay put. We wait for morning. Out there, we'll just end up getting lost trying to find the way out. This manor is massive. What even is this place? Sheila stammered, sobbing. My sister was right. We should not have come here. She pressed her knees close, trying to shut out the memory of the woman's slack smile as she dangled from the rope. Trying not to see Ray's face, pale and terrified before the walls closed on him forever, every time she blinked. Kevin turned, hands spread wide. Do you all think they'll just allow us to stay put? Who's they? Nina asked. Them. The game doesn't stop until someone wins. And that means moving. That means doing something. Ray just fucking died. Man, Daryl snapped. His voice cracked on the name. The game is probably not even real. Exactly. That's what they want you to think. To watch us run around, fight, scream, bicker, and get killed one by one. This is a death game. And the breaking news, everybody, we are the fucking contestants. If we don't do anything, they're gonna get bored and send one of those creatures to storm in here and take us out for boring the crap out of them. Sheila cried. What are you even talking about? No one's watching us. As much as I hate to admit it, Kevin's got a point, Nina said disappointedly. Why go through all this trouble? Maybe the movies got it right. Maybe rich people just have a kink at watching other people die. Sheila gave her a strange look. Nina raised her hands. I don't know. Everything's fucking weird here. Okay? There were oddly a lot of cameras around the manor when I went through it. Come to think of it, they're perfectly placed to get as much coverage as possible. She mentioned a god, Daryl whispered. She said we're being fed to one. Now I know that one's bullshit, Kevin said. Sadistic billionaires with a taste for gladiatorial entertainment? Yeah, I'll buy that. I don't really believe that other part. Sure. The monsters? Probably some genetic freaks experimented by Henry. He has the money to have some crazy fucked up pets, I guess. Sorry, I'm rambling. I'm just spitballing here to make sense of our shitty situation. And this is a shitty situation. Daryl grunted, head lolling against the cushion. You sound like you want to play their game, man. Kevin's jaw tightened. I want to survive. That's it. Sheila shook her head. Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe playing is a trap. Maybe we shouldn't run around like rats in a maze because the psychos upstairs told us to. Kevin pushed off the wall, stepping toward her. You think hiding in here's gonna cut it, babe? You think they didn't plan for that? They'll smoke us out, or gas us, or burn the whole damn room down with us still inside just to get us moving to the next death match. He stopped, the thought unfinished but enough to sour the air. How come they haven't done that yet? Daryl asked. Kevin didn't have the answer right away, but Nina voiced out loud her thoughts. Maybe they didn't want us all dead in an hour. What do you mean by that? Sheila asked. It means a broken bar. They want this to last for the whole night by killing us off slowly, Nina said. It'll be more entertaining that way. She's not wrong, I thought. I looked to the sky, half hoping I could get a glimpse of the administrators having fun like sports fans watching these people die in brutal ways. Sheila choked a sob. That's fucked up. Why would you even suggest that? Kevin was slowly losing his patience. Look, guys, that doesn't fucking matters. All I'm saying is that they want us scared. They want us feel cornered so that we make mistakes. But if we find the exit, or if we move here, then maybe we take some of that power back. Huh? Do you want to die here? Sheila visibly gulped. No? Good. At least we're all in the same page. Daryl's head rolled back against the cushion. What about Lope? I thought we're trying to find him. If he hasn't found us yet, or found Ray, or heard all the commotion earlier, then, safe to say, he's probably dead. Daryl let out a sharp click of his cheeks. That's fucking cold, man. But Kevin just ignored the jibe. Nina swallowed. They're really picking us off then. Kevin's huffed. And if you don't want to be next, I suggest we get moving. How long is he going to be asleep? I wondered, hovering above Lope's unconscious body. As if on cue, Lope woke with a pounding headache and the taste of iron slick on his tongue, the stone floor pressing cold into his spine. For a long, confused heartbeat, he couldn't tell if he was awake or if the nightmare was still running in his head. His eyes opened, unfocused, shapes tilting in the dark until the one bare bulb overhead burned itself into existence. The room shivered in yellow light. He didn't recognize a single inch of it. Am I in the basement? The thought wasn't as reassuring. He pushed up slowly, every nerve whining, muscles aching, joints swollen, even his teeth throbbed like he'd been chewing rocks in his sleep. His hand found the tender knot on his skull and winced from the sharp pain. He leaned against a tipped garbage bin, fought the sway in his legs, and waited for the nausea to pass. Easy there, buddy, I said. I was about to raise my hands to steady him when I realized I had none. I keep forgetting about that part. Beyond the garbage room, the basement sprawled wide, a labyrinth of corridors twisting back on themselves like some giant, living vein of a slumbering creature. Workshops with tables covered in neatly arranged tools. Large apartment-sized wine cellars, their racks packed floor to ceiling with expensive and exotic bottles and crates. Storage rooms with boxes stacked high, metal filing cabinets dented and locked, long abandoned office desks, from the fake old sanatorium, with papers yellowed and curling at the edges. Somewhere, deep in the darkness, a generator throbbed, a low mechanical heartbeat vibrating through the floor into his chest, in sync with the anxiety building in his gut. His hand went to his waistband. Empty. A cold sweep of panic shot through him. He dropped to the floor, searching under the tipped bin, under the table, everywhere. Nothing. The gun was gone. His lungs tightened around the realization. He swallowed it down, because what else could he do? He reckoned what the others were up to. If some of them were still alive, were they looking for him now? The only door loomed across the room. He thought, gotta keep moving, I guessa. He shoved it open. And find the others. A narrow hallway waited before him. Pipes ran along the ceiling, dripping moisture and hissing hot. Somewhere further down, the echo of water pinged against stone. He passed a wine cellar, rows and rows of bottles and wooden barrels with labels he couldn't pronounce or were missing entirely. Some of the storage rooms were clearly old asylum cells converted into storage rooms, but they had the faint, lingering smell of disinfectant. The thought of prisoners, or ghosts appearing right there if he looked at it too long made his skin crawl. Lope approached a table in the hallway with an old newspaper folded neatly at the edge. He picked it up and read the headline, "The Last Resort Asylum Closes for Good. Reagan Act Hits Oregon Health Institutions Statewide." Lope put down the newspaper back on the table. "Look what I did there? Kinda neat prop, right?" But Lope didn't hear me as he continued down the hallway. I sighed loudly, which I doubted he heard at all. No one appreciated detailed realistic sets anymore. The corridors tangled him deeper. Workshops again, drills and saws lined in careful rows, silent and waiting. Crates, boxes. Every turn, every hallway, every door led him somewhere new or nowhere at all. It was hard to tell even if he was going the right way. He paused in one stretch when a brush of cologne wafted under his nostrils, bergamot and citrus, coming from somewhere to his left. He followed it to a larger room that looked like the heart of this place, 4 corridors splitting off to one side or the other. He barely had time to register the room before a voice came out of the dark. "You're finally awake." Roy's shout cut from the stairwell. He stood outlined in the stair's mouth, Lope's gun a dark extension of his arm. "Good." Lope froze for a beat, everything jarring like a blown fuse. Roy came out small and stupid. The muzzle flash came before the sound, a bright orange ripping through the gloom. The bullet pinged off the stone wall, ricochet screaming down the hallway. I let out a startled yelp. You missed. Roy ignored me. Lope ducked and dove hard, pain lancing through his side, and tumbled into a wide-open wine vault to his left. Rows and rows of old oak cracks loomed like prison bars. Bottles clinked as he slammed into them and crawled behind a dusty shelf. Another shot cracked, splintering wood just inches from his head. Glass shattered, and the sharp stink of vinegar wine filled the air. "Don't run from me, Lope." Roy's voice whipped through the aisles, raw and weirdly gentle. "I can make this easier for you. For both of us." That was a weird way to put it, but I'm letting Roy cook here on this dungeon encounter. After all, this was his first. I had no clue what he was as an enemy combatant, but it was a nice way to test out how minions fight for real. I had one already stirring upstairs, which I couldn't wait to spring on the others, if they ever get their asses out of the room. For now, I'm letting them recuperate. Their resolve ain't ready yet. I focused my attention back to the wine cellar. Lope pressed his cheek to the cold stone floor, lungs on fire, trying not to breathe too loud. He heard boots scraped against the floor not far from him. Roy was coming in slow, the gun clutched in both hands. His voice cracked and warbled in the cellar. "I'm sorry. You're a good kid, Lope, but I have to do this. He's watching." "Hey, no spoilers," I said to Roy. Still, Roy ignored me. I realized it was deliberate. Lope peeked through a gap between the racks. Roy's silhouette moved down the aisle, a pale shape trembling in the dim yellow light bulb that swung overhead. "You don't have to do this, Roy." Roy answered by shooting in the direction of the sound. Lope dove again, scurrying deeper, and found a brace of barrels to hide behind. Bullets punched clean holes in the staves. A red cascade thundered out in a long stream. Suddenly the floor was bleeding wine. Roy leaned and peeked along the shelf and found it empty. Lope was already somewhere else. Roy cursed under his breath, frustrated. "Come out, Lope." "Unlike the others, I promise I won't make it hurt too much. Just a little pain. Just enough. Your soul is not ready yet. I need to make it ready for him. You understand, right?" Lope gritted his teeth. This guy's fucking crazy. He scraped his palm along the shelf until his fingers found a corkscrew. Aha! A weapon. He wrapped his hand around it as if someone had handed him a knife to a gunfight. He rehearsed the motion in his head: lunge, seize the hand with the gun, point it away from him, and then drive up the pointy end into Roy's throat. Quick, ugly, bloody. He was sure he could do it. Lope readied himself. "Oh, this will be good," Oracle said, watching the entire thing through the computer screen back at the cabin. "Hush. It's getting exciting," I said to the robot. "You mustn't make it harder than it needs to be," Roy crooned from somewhere ahead. "Think of it as mercy. A few shots to drain you, then a clean end." "The werewolves won't be so kind." The word werewolves hit him like a stone, but Lope didn't have the energy to let the thought marinate further in his mind. He had the energy for one thing: staying alive long enough to get the hell out of here. Roy was getting closer now. The hum of the generator thudded through the stone and in rhythm with Lope's blood. He could hear Roy talking to himself, but he couldn't make out the words. Wait, is he praying? A footstep. Then, two. The bulb swayed, throwing them both into a strip of light. Lope's fingers tightened around the corkscrew until the metal bit into the side of his fingers. "Please," Roy said, more to himself than to Lope. "Forgive me." Then the light hit the aisle and Roy appeared up close, unbelievingly small and horribly human with his gun raised, a single tear soaking the line of his right cheek. Lope lunged forward with the corkscrew. "Are those real tears?" I wondered. Roy fired, but Lope was already ducking, his shoulder rolling with momentum. The bullet screamed past his ear and smacked somewhere behind him. Lope didn't stop there. He twisted his body and slammed into Roy like a linebacker. The hard impact should have driven the man to the floor, should have knocked the wind out of him, should have at least staggered him. But Roy didn't move. He stayed upright, solid as a post sunk in cement. What the fuck? Lope barely had time to register it before Roy's hand was in the back of his shirt, yanking fabric tight against his spine. Another arm hooked beneath his armpit with obscene familiarity. And then Lope was airborne. Both Oracle and I cringed hard. "Oh, that's gotta hurt," I said. Lope slammed hard across the room, shoulder first, ribs screaming as stone bit into him. He rolled, skidding in a spray of broken glass and leaking wine until the top of his head kissed a barrel as his breath fled his lungs. Pain rang through him. But the corkscrew was still in his fist, and when Lope staggered up, he realized there was blood around the swirling metal. Roy's shoulder was torn open where he made a shallow stab. Roy looked down at it with a kind of bored curiosity, then brushed it with his fingers like someone swiping dust from a sleeve. The blood came away wet and red, but his face didn't change. Roy raised the gun again, leveled it at Lope's chest. Click. A hollow sound. He pulled the trigger again. Click, click. The gun jammed. Oracle swiveled his head around to look at me. I shook my head. Nope. Not me. I didn't do that. Lope didn't think and just grabbed the nearest thing he could see, a wine bottle from the rack. He hurled it with fastball speed. It caught Roy in the side of the head, bursting against his temple in a spray of shards and wine. Roy reeled back for just a second. Lope was already grabbing another bottle. This one he smashed against the rack, the jagged bottom blooming in his hand like a crown. He didn't hesitate and lunged forward again. Roy met him head-on. His hands came up faster, frighteningly faster, one clamping Lope's wrist, the other catching his shoulder. The two of them crashed together, teeth bared, grunting in each other's faces. The gun flew off from Roy's grip, skidding under the stacks of wine barrels, lost forever. Lope drove the bottle down mere inches from Roy's throat. But Roy's strength held him back, the jagged edges quivering against the air above his collarbone. Roy's breath came hot and rancid in Lope's face. Please, Lope, don't make me hurt you worse. Lope snarled, spit spraying his chin. Go to hell. The bottle jerked sideways, scraping across Roy's shoulder and tearing fabric. Roy roared, fury snapping through him, and with inhuman strength, he twisted Lope's wrist. But Lope wasn't giving up this fast. He let out a loud roar and drove his entire weight into Roy, slamming the jagged stump of bottle straight into the side of his neck. The glass punched through skin with a wet pop, slid deep into meat. Blood erupted hot and fast, spraying Lope's knuckles and all throughout his screaming face. Roy shoved Lope off him with inhuman strength. Lope staggered, heels sliding in a puddle of wine as he hit the floor. His vision swam, but his adrenaline screamed at his body, get up, get up, get up. Roy rose to his feet. The bottle was jutting grotesquely from his throat like a second Adam's apple. He reached up, grabbed it, and yanked it free with a wet squelch. Blood poured down his shirt, but his face stayed eerily calm. However, Lope noticed that Roy struggled a little to stand now. He's getting slow, Lope thought. But he didn't know how much he could keep this up with weakening him when the man almost twice his age just brushed off a wound to the jugular. I moved deeper into the wine cellar to take a closer look at the action. Then, the lights above flickered. The whole cellar started with electricity responding to my supernatural presence, throwing shadows that jittered across the walls, long and insectile. The air grew thicker, heavier, like the cellar was breathing down on both of them. Lope's eyes widened, horrified. Roy looked up at the lights at me and smiled, and yet I could still see hesitation behind it. Regret, guilt, defeated acceptance. I know I will. Lope scrambled backward, crawling on his palms and heels, heart hammering against his ribcage. Roy advanced, each step slow and deliberate. The glass shard glistened in his bloody hand as he raised it overhead, like a priest with a sacrificial blade. You can't stop what's coming to you, Roy whispered, voice bubbling with blood. You can't. He never finished. A scream tore out of him as an axe head burst through his back, cleaving muscle and splitting bone. His arms pinwheeled, the glass shard fell and clattered against the stone floor. His knees buckled and he dropped to the floor with a loud grunt. Behind him stood Kate, both hands locked on the axe handle. Her eyes were wide and bright in the flickering light in a mask of horror. Get up, Lope, she hissed, wrenching the blade free with a wet, sucking sound. Lope pushed himself upright. His hands found the iron rungs of the wine rack, rows and rows of dusty bottles staring out like blind eyes. The heavy rack gave way with a tortured scream as wine bottles cascaded like artillery fire. The air filled with glass shrapnel and the stench of sour grape blood. The shelf smashed down across Roy's back. He buckled with a guttural roar, knees cracking the floorboards, hands clawing blindly at nothing. Bottles burst against him, dark liquid soaking his clothes, his hair, streaking his face like black blood. A final grunt pushed out of his chest before he slumped under the wreckage, motionless. Lope just stood there staring at the collapsed shelves and the sprawled thing beneath them. His chest rose and fell, adrenaline slowly escaping out of him. His hands trembled even though he tried to steady them against his knees. For a long beat, he looked less like a survivor and more like a kid lost in the dark room, too afraid to make any sudden moves. "Kate," Lope whispered, finally realizing who was in front of him. "What the heck are you doing down here?" Before Kate could answer, another voice cut through the musty air. Suraj stepped out from behind the stacked barrels, his mouth wide open. He craned his neck to stare at the vague, sprawled shape pinned beneath the shelf. "Holy fuck. Did you just kill that guy?" Suraj's shoes crunched broken glass as he edged closer. "Don't go near him," Lope barked, sharper than he meant to. His hand shot out, palm open. "Has a broken bar? Something is wrong with him." "Where's my sister?" Kate asked. Lope stepped over the rack to get closer to them. "The last time I saw her, she was with Kevin at the library upstairs. Do you know the way?" Lope paused for a second. "I think the stairwell back that leads to the rest of the manor. Roy was blocking it earlier." Suraj pointed at Roy. "Wait, you know who this guy is?" Lope gave a tight nod. "He's local." Suraj let out a laugh, shaking his head. "Is everyone in this town just freaking crazy?" "It's a broken bar new thing." He looked at Kate when he said the next part, his voice low. "He's one of them now." "One of what?" "Whoever's attacking us." "We were attacked earlier and Ray got injured." "Us, too." "There's this wild animal that got Xavier." "How in the hell did you get here?" "The tunnel." "There's a tunnel?" "Yeah." Suraj jumped in, his voice too eager and too loud. "A lot of them. All connected to the places around here." "Hell, half the forest and the mountains carved out with them." "We were originally from that creepy Texas chainsaw farmhouse." "Glad we got out of there to swap it for another creepy dump." Lope jerked his head up. Excuse me, who the hell are you?" "Suraj." "Lawyer." "Kidnapped victim." "Oh." It was all Lope could say. "It's a long story," Kate said quickly. "Wait. Did you say Xavier got hurt? Are the kids with you?" Before anyone could answer, frantic voices rattled down the hallway. They rushed out of the cellar and found Vivian crouched over Xavier. He was on the floor, his whole body jerking in violent spasms, his arms flailing like a puppet with its strings yanked. Foam flecked his lips, his eyes rolled white. "Help me!" Vivian screamed. "What's wrong with him?" Lope asked. "I don't know." Vivian's voice cracked. "We were walking and then he just collapsed all of a sudden." "He's having a seizure," Kate said, ran toward them. Xavier's heels hammered the stone floor like a drum beat. Vivian struggled with him as she sobbed, trying to cradle his head, but Xavier's body thrashed like it wanted to tear itself apart from the inside out. Kate dropped to her knees beside her, shouting over the noise, "Roll him, put him on his side or else he'll choke on his own spit." "What's happening to him?" Lope also got to his knees to help. "He's been feeling sick. A broken bar." "Yeah, broken bar. I don't know." "What should we do?" Vivian said frantically. The three of them heaved together, muscles straining, until Xavier toppled onto his hip. His chest hitched, foam bubbling out between clenched teeth. And then a wet crack split the air. Xavier arched in a way no spine should ever bend. Something inside him snapped. Blood geysed from his back, a red spray that splattered Kate and Lope across their faces and drenched Vivian's clothes in its steaming warmth. They screamed and recoiled, but Xavier only shrieked louder, an animal cry that reverberated throughout the basement. "What's a broken bar happening? A broken bar to me?" Xavier screamed. "It hurts. It hurts." His shirt tore itself apart as his flesh bulged against it. Vertebrae punched through skin like white fangs, splitting the length of his back. The sound was obscene, a ripping coupled with a deep, muscular pop, as if his whole skeleton was rearranging beneath the meat. His hands clawed at the floor, fingernails tearing away as black claws pushed through the nailbeds. Xavier's head snapped back. His mouth opened in a soundless scream, neck straining until the tendons stood out like ropes. His eyes rolled, not to the people crouched around him, not to the cellar walls or upward toward the ceiling. And there he saw something. He saw me. Terror ripped through Xavier like a heavy blanket. His own scream joined the crack of his bones and the wet gush of blood. As my silhouette leaned closer, I realized my form was no longer human, but something else entirely. It must be different for each mortal, but horrifying to witness nonetheless. He was turning into one of my archetype as a broken bar, becoming part of my dungeon and inheriting the powers I bestowed for his archetype. And it was a grotesque and painful process. Does he even recognize me? I wondered. Oh my God. Zuraj froze where he stood. Get away from him or you'll get what he has. Stay back. Loeb dragged Kate and Vivian away from Xavier, but they were too enthralled, in a macabre curiosity and horror, to watch what's happening to him. Xavier's jaw unhinged with a crack that echoed through the cellar, stretching impossibly wide. Teeth rattled loose, spattering the boards in a mix of enamel and blood. New ones pushed through the ruined gums along, canine, yellow, and hungry. His tongue lolled out like a black snake, thrashing as he gagged on his own transformation. His face warped, bones shifting under his skin like rats running just beneath the surface. His eyes bled red, pupils shrinking to pinpricks of gold. Tufts of hair sprouted wet and greasy from split follicles, spreading in uneven patches across his chest, shoulders, arms, and neck. His spine finished this grotesque evolution with another wet pop like bubble wrap, and then a sudden lurch forward. Now he was on all fours, hunched like some starving beast, breathing raggedly through a new jaw built for killing. You have gained 2 essences, Xavier Yates. You have gained 300 crystals. Xavier blinked, bloody jaws parting, and exhaled a sound that wasn't human. A growl rolled out of him like thunder, and the realization hit all of them at once. They were trapped in the cellar with this monstrosity. In an instant, I saw 2 of the Delvers' resolve drop to red. Zuraj and Vivian. The werewolf's eyes snapped to their trembling movement and saw the bloody aura that now shrouded them. Loeb saw through its intentions and barreled into the 2 women, knocking both of them sideways. They hit the ground hard, but the shove spared them. Zuraj bolted in the opposite direction, shoes almost slipping on spilled wine. He screamed and sprinted into the open belly of the cellar. For a second or two, it looked like he might make it, but the werewolf's momentum carried him straight into Zuraj. It hit Zuraj mid-run, claws raking across his back with the wet strip of fabric and flesh like a butcher tearing a slab of meat from the bone. Zuraj pitched forward, his scream breaking into a gurgle as the beast's jaws clamped down on his shoulder. Jesus Christ! Loeb bellowed, dragging Kate up by the arm. Vivian couldn't move. She just stared as the monstrous creature shook Zuraj like a rag doll, bones snapping inside his skin. One of his legs twitched grotesquely in the air before tearing free with a spray of blood, shoes still laced. The werewolf tossed it aside like garbage and went back for more, muzzle buried in his chest. The noise was unbearable of flesh tearing and cartilage ripping apart, especially the wet sucking noises as the beast wrenched chunks free from the man's body. Zuraj's screams dwindled into hoarse, pitiful whines. Then nothing at all. Just the sound of chewing, tearing, and feeding. You have gained 1 essence, Zuraj Goyle. You have gained 150 crystals. Loeb yanked Vivian by the wrist, hard enough to bruise. I said, move. Kate was already sprinting, blood-slick shoes slapping against the stone. They hit the stairwell and climbed up the steps 2 at a time. Behind them, the beast raised its gore-soaked head, Zuraj's insides draped from its jaws like butcher's trimmings. It snarled with red froth dripping down its fur, and bolted after them. The 3 of them hurled themselves through the doorway. Loeb grabbed the metal handle and heaved. The industrial sliding door screeched in protest, rust grinding against rust. The werewolf was already bounding up the stairs, claws scraping, and its eyes locked on them. Come on, come on. Come on! Loeb grunted as his muscles screamed. The beast was nearly on them when the door slammed shut with a metallic thunder. Its claws raked against the steel, the force of its body making the hinges quake. The whole stairwell shuddered with each impact. Let's go! Let's get out of here! Loeb shouted. The 3 of them ran away from the door and spilled out into the manor's sprawling maze. Scenario 4 12:30 a.m. 6 hours until dawn. 7 Delvers remaining a broken bar. I looked down at poor Roy, buried under the heavy shelf, his blood mixing with the pooling wine and broken glass. He made a soft croak in his open pierced throat while the werewolf tried to break down the basement door not far from him. He made an effort to get up, but barely could hold it for a second before he collapsed under the shelf's weight. A long hiss escaped his lips. His eyes went blank and distant. I snapped back next to Duke Henry at the garden. "So a broken bar, your butler is pretty much dead." "What a shame." Henry shrugged and took out a pocket notebook and a black pen from his jacket. He started writing on it, then slipped it back. "What did you write about?" "My notes." "You're taking notes? In how my minions are performing?" "Yes." I chuckled. "Are you seriously giving them performance reviews?" "One of your employees is dead." "I don't think he cares anymore. At least I can see for myself how they can take a beating." "Consider this a test." "So they are test subjects?" "Correct." "Well, they don't die easy from a serious injury." I pictured the corkscrew in Roy's throat. Roy remained standing for 5 minutes while his throat was open. Henry took out his notebook again and wrote more stuff in it. I caught the words blood sorcery circled at the very top. "Sorcery? It might improve their constitution and stamina, if I learn how to harness it." Henry thinned his lips. "May I make an odd request, my lord? Based on what I've done and seen in the past few months, Henry, nothing is ever odd. On your next archetype upgrades, perhaps we should expedite the inclusion of a sorcerer or a powerful archmage in your dungeon. You have covered the offensive and defensive capabilities of your domain, but we are lacking in the magical front. I request to learn blood sorcery in order to enhance my reach and help you." "Technically, I am magic." "Right you are, sir. But not during a delve. Unless you are willing to break the rules and bring the administrators to us." "You know I am not allowed to cast spells that directly influence a delve." Henry rolled his eyes. "Yes, the faraway hot pockets behind the screen." "Do you want my personal opinion, sir?" "Go ahead." "The administrators are just as mortal as the humans inside that manor. They work for and manipulate the loopholes of the system, but mortal nonetheless. For all cause, they are fair game for you to offer a delve and feed on." "They didn't give me those vibes when I spoke to them." "It's probably because they don't want the habit of cause eating them. They're an odd lot who fancies themselves above the system's cycle of life. They also eat dungeons who disobey." Henry smiled mischievously. "That ice a broken bar if a death core allows them to, and everyone in the universe knows death cores are not to be fucked with. And besides, who do you really work for? The administrators or the system?" "The system demands balance." "The system demands balance because mortals demand balance, and death cores demand chaos." I wanted to say, all the rewards that surviving delvers could have would tip off the balance of a world to those who knew how to ask for such power. Humans on Earth did not have that luxury of foresight except for a select few. If anyone survived tonight's delve, I wondered what they would wish for. I turned to Henry. "Best not speak ill of them when those people you dislike so much are watching and paying us." "I don't dislike them, my lord." "No," Henry said. "They're paying you so that they can get high from a fraction of your power." I didn't say anything. Right now, I didn't want to risk offending the administrators since I'm still a juvenile core. Henry added, "And besides, I often wonder what aliens taste like." Kevin and the others were still holed up in that upstairs room, debating themselves in circles whether they should stay or go like a bunch of hens clucking in a coop while the wolf pawed at the fence. I let them stew and bicker for another few minutes. My many eyes followed the real action, Lope, Kate, and Vivian coming up from the cellar steps like rats driven out by floodwater. The basement door was still holding, though Christ only knew how. Xavier hit it again and again with those new big shoulders of his, and every slam sounded like a tree snapping in half. Still, it held. For now, after running through a couple of hallways, they spilled into the dining room. I drew the lights down another notch for mood lighting, a dungeon lord's allowed to have his little amusements, and watched the shadows stretch in the corners. The delvers didn't seem to notice. Lope jammed a chair under the knob as a barricade, like that would do a damn thing against the freight train hammering around downstairs. They all stood there for a beat, listening. As they looked around the room, they found it empty. Safe, at least for a few minutes, and that was when all the adrenaline drained out of them and pushed their emotions to the surface. Vivian's soft cries came first. Kate and Lope started squabbling. Lope got practical about their survival, the way a man does when he's trying to keep all the gears in his head turning in the same direction. Kate just came apart in fits, like someone frantically trying to tape back together a broken vase, but it just kept falling apart in her hands. It took 5 long minutes of back and forth before they both reached the truth they didn't want to face. They were being hunted by a werewolf. No, they were trapped with a fucking werewolf. Vivian, the poor little thing, wanted to go back for her brother. Of course she did. She kicked and screamed like a small chihuahua in their grip. Kate finally slapped Hero a sharp, flat crack that hung in the room for a long second afterward. I chuckled. You'd be amazed what a good slap can do to rewire a person's thinking. And that's exactly what happened. It brought Vivian's resolve back to a darker orange. She sulked and sat down on the chair at the head of the table, clutching her reddened cheek. He's not your brother anymore, Kate told her desperately. If you go back down there, you'll die. Vivian's hope was still there though, and I doubted that was ever going to change. Maybe we can find something to reverse it. Lope just stared at her, and you could see him making the decision to be cruel for her own good. You saw it with your own eyes, girl. He turned into a goddamn animal. He's a werewolf. Ain't nobody got a cure for that around here. How are we supposed to find one? They don't exist, Vivian said, her voice cracking. Even she didn't believe her words. Well, they fucking do now, Lope said. Vivian wiped a small tear running down her cheek with the back of her hand. Madame Dallaire said I shouldn't go into the mountains. And who the hell is Madame Dallaire? Lope asked. Our broken bar. Vivian paused. She didn't really know what she was. A witch? A seer? A crazy con artist? She shook her head. Never mind. I turned my many eyes back at the cabin where Oracle was, but the construct beat me to it. Lauren Toombs is in her home asleep, my lord. Good. I don't want to deal with another interruption from a sorcerer. Rules of magic were sometimes a funny thing. I couldn't risk the possibility that merely uttering Madame Dallaire's name might wake the sorcerer up and sense some trouble in the mountains. She and Vivian had grown awfully close in the past couple of weeks. If she decides to drive up the mountains, I'll disable her car. I have already made a couple of contingencies, Oracle said. I remembered Hodge's last stand at the court tree. That was a close call. Maybe Henry was right. Maybe I really needed to invest on recruiting a mage for my dungeon to combat future spellcasters. Back at the manor, Kate asked the only question left. So what do we do now? Lope scanned the room, doors, windows, exits, and was satisfied by what he saw. I think it's safe enough here. You two stay. I'm gonna see if the others are still holed up by the front. That's the last place I left them. Kate stiffened. No way. I want to see my sister. She's upstairs, Lope reminded her, gentle as he could. I'll get Daryl, Nina, and Ray first. Better if we move as a group before we find the others. I'll only be gone for 5 minutes. 10. Tops. Okay. Kate crossed her arms, lips pressed into a thin line. Fine. But hurry. That door back there is not going to hold forever. Lope paused to listen. They didn't hear the slamming noises beyond the door anymore. I'll be right back, he said and left. That made me smile. Folks in horror movies always said that, and they almost never did. I let my many eyes drift like a bored cameraman craning for a better view, and there, at the mouth of the east wing, under the flaking portrait of a man who'd once thought himself important back in the Gilded Age, Garth and Luke had gathered. I flew out of the dining room because curiosity was one of my cheaper vices. Maybe they were giving each other pep talks. Maybe they were comparing their favorite ways to carve a man open. Either was possible. I drifted past the smoking room on my way, and the Delvers were still in there, bickering amongst themselves, although it was already coming to a consensus that it was time to move their ass and find a way out of this building. As I suspected, the respite gave them a false sense of security. What you guys doing? I asked, appearing right next to Garth and Luke. Luke here were Luke, if you want to be technical, blew out a huff out of his snout like someone who'd just found out their grandma died. We have a problem, my lord. His voice sounded warped, guttural, and warmly deep. All the werewolves sounded like that. What kind of problem? He paused, looked sideways as if checking for potential eavesdroppers that weren't there. Have you received any notifications on your side? Oh, yeah, that little prick of the system and how it kept buzzing me with notifications like a hungry mosquito. I had been watching the action in the basement, so I ignored and reduced the tab because of its annoying pings, except when it had something to do with earning crystals or essence. I popped open the system menu with a gesture. There it was, stark and official and annoyingly polite about a potential issue in my dungeon. They even colored it a dull red on the bar to let me know it was a very serious matter. A potential recruitable archetype, a werewolf, has appeared inside your domain. Warning, all werewolf slots have been filled, 3/3. You must create a new archetype or upgrade the trait to increase your werewolf pack. Warning, a scenario is in progress. You cannot create a new archetype. Whoops, I said out loud. It's a delving night, so I can't create new monsters until after the delve's done. Or when all the delvers are dead, I thought. The werewolves nodded. Wait a minute. Does that mean Xavier is not listening to me? He can, but he is untethered to the dungeon, Luke said. His werewolf instincts are at an overdrive. Without your guidance and the power of the system's influence, he is a walking bomb. He will not care about a delver's resolve. He will go for the kill. Always. He will always be a berserker. A berserker? I quickly opened the monsters tab and looked at the werewolf stat sheet. Berserker, lycanthrope, I. This monster can enter into an extreme form of lycan bloodlust, further enhancing their strength, fortitude, speed, and lethality. They gain an insatiable taste for killing prey at all costs, reducing the chances of lycan infection. Higher likelihood of leaving no delvers alive during a single encounter. A delver's survival rate drops to 2% when stacked with pack tactics during a single encounter. Duration, 5 minutes. Cooldown, 1 hour. That looked pretty bad. I didn't want the delvers to die so quickly without collecting their essence. I realized the Sawyers had never used this ability yet. Maybe they were saving it for special occasions or for emergencies. So what do we do? I asked. Garth's eyes glittered in the low light and straightened his back. Either he submits to us, he said, or we kill him. I let that sit. It was one thing to have a werewolf eating on the same table and quite another to have one loose and destroying all the curtains, plates, and expensive cutlery. Plus, it was nice to finally hear Garth speak. Well, his werewolf form, anyway. By a submit you mean a broken bar. Show him the pecking order, Garth said. Alan's alpha, but he's not here. I am second. If he refuses, I'll kill him. You think that'll work? He's still a werewolf, a dungeon or untethered. His blood will know, Luke said. And if he submits, he'll follow us, Luke said. The system will grant him temporary status within the dungeon as one of us. After that a broken bar, you have to either create a new archetype for him or let him slide into the pack proper as a fourth member of our pack. That usually means an upgrade to a pack tactics trait. That a broken bar can work. I mean, I already got his essence, and I stopped before I could say that it was a nice appetizer for tonight's feast. I'm already down 3 of my 10-course menu. Bring him to heel. Kill him if he does not. I don't want more interruptions from outsiders tonight. Let's proceed with tonight's delve, shall we? I watched them go. Luke flattened back toward the upstairs rooms like a shadow returning to its place, ears twitching for any human stupidity from the upstairs delvers. Garth moved the other way, down the corridor toward the foyer and the grand staircase. That's when I realized another problem. As Garth came padding down the stairs, at the same time, Lope was sneaking along the ground floor, bent low like a burglar in a cartoon, heading toward the sitting room. He moved in jerks and starts, pausing at every corner, checking over his shoulder, not realizing a werewolf was heading in his direction. They turned into the same hallway from opposite ends. The corridor was narrow enough that neither could just slip by unnoticed. They stopped dead, 10 yards apart, eyes locked at each other. Lope froze, his mouth partway open, like he'd stumbled into a bear trap. Garth's golden eyes narrowed, reflecting the weak light. For a long, breathless moment, it was predator and prey sizing each other up. Then a broken bar, nothing. Garth snorted, a wet, dismissive sound, and shifted his shoulders like a man adjusting a jacket that didn't quite fit. He continued walking down the hallway because he had bigger things to deal with. Xavier was the priority right now, not the skinny human with his wide eyes, blood-stained flesh, and sweaty shirt. Lope blinked, waiting for the charge that didn't come. He said, as if words might trip the beast and reminded him that he was supposed to eat him. Wergarth gave him one last look of disdain mixed with boredom, then turned his head away like Lope was a disgusting vegetable. "Excuse me." "Coming through," said Wergarth in that warped werewolf voice, which only scared Lope even more and stayed rooted in place. The werewolf ambled past the delver, claws tapping the floorboards, brushing so close that Lope could smell the wet dog stink of him. When the werewolf was gone, Lope let out a long, shaky breath and muttered, "What the fuck just happened?" Lope staggered back a step, head spinning. He tilted his head, tracking the disappearing silhouette, and trying to read the rules of a game that made no sense. Moments ago, these monsters were on a feeding frenzy. Now, calm, polite, walking past like he was some tourist in a haunted house. Clearly, reality had taken a vacation. He exhaled slowly, muttering to himself, "Yeah, broken bar, I don't have a broken bar, okay, a broken bar." His voice trailed off, more confused. But he was glad he was still alive. Then Lope heard the unmistakable sound of a heavy metallic door gave way, crashing to the ground, and trailed by a howl of two monstrous wolves. Xavier bounded through the hallways. His nose twitched, tracking the scent of fear, sweat, and human blood. The manor seemed to shrink around him as he ran, the shadows stretching and flinching away from his bulk. He reached the dining room in seconds. The door exploded. Wood splintered like brittle bones under Xavier's weight. The air shook with the force of it. The barricade Lope had set up splintered under a single slash of his claws. Kate and Vivian screamed, but the sound barely registered over the beast's roar. Kate and Vivian huddled behind the long table, eyes wide with fear, hands pressed to their mouths, then ducked underneath. Too late. The werewolf saw them first. Xavier lunged when his gaze landed on them, revealing bared teeth and fury radiating from every taut muscle. Then the far door detonated inward. Wergarth hit the rogue werewolf side on before he could reach the delvers. Two freight trains colliding in a shower of spit and claws. They slammed into the dining table, splitting it halfway down the middle. The women scrambled deeper underneath, as wood splinters rained like shrapnel, some even cutting Kate's cheek. Xavier ripped free and came up fast, eyes glowing like coals, jaws painted red. Wergarth was already there, hammering a shoulder into his chest, looping an arm around the thick neck, then dragging him back into the wreckage. Fists that weren't fists anymore pounded. Claws opened skin in thick wet ribbons. Every blow sounded like a butcher at work. Vivian lurched forward. Xavier! Kate clamped a hand over her mouth and yanked her away from the carnage. "Shut up, you'll get us both killed." The werewolves crashed against the walls, plaster bursting like old scabs. The chandelier above swayed and tinkled. And then Xavier went feral, pushing deeper into his berserker state. He surged, muscles bulging, eyes lit like a molten steel. He ripped Wergarth off his feet and hurled him clear across the room. Wergarth hit the wall, wood paneling caving in, and slid down in a heap. A painting fell off the wall and smashed on top of his head. For a couple of seconds he stayed there, shaking his head, stunned by Xavier's raw power. That was all Xavier needed. He turned, sensing the prey hiding under the table. His snarl deepened as Vivian's eyes locked on him, wide, wet. "Xavier, a broken bar," she whispered. For a heartbeat, he hesitated. Recognition flickered, gone as quickly as it came as the beast within overpowered his humanity. He lunged for her sister. He lunged for the kill. Vivian froze, deer in headlights, and would have been shredded if Kate hadn't yanked her sideways. Xavier's claws carved through empty air, gouged a shallow trench in the floorboards where Vivian's head had been. Kate dragged her toward the far end, shouting something incoherent together with her desperate screams. Xavier wheeled for another strike here, and Wergarth hit him from behind like a meteor. The elder werewolf drove him into the wrecked table, more wood snapping under their combined weight. Xavier roared, spinning, claws raking at Wergarth's back, but Wergarth locked on and wouldn't let go. They tore into each other again in a performance of pure violence, bodies slamming into walls and sending dust snowing from the ceiling. That's when Lope appeared in the doorway and then dove under the table. He didn't argue, he just grabbed both women by the arms and dragged them out the way he'd come. Vivian fought him at first, still watching the fight, but he hauled them clear with a grunt and said, "There's no time. Let's get out of here while they're still distracted." Behind them, the fight hit its crescendo. Xavier lunged, frothing and mindless. Wergarth twisted and moved his body around as if he had been a werewolf for many years, powered by discipline and the system's influence, and locked both arms around the rogue beast's throat. He wrenched him down, forced him to the broken floorboards, teeth snapping an inch from his face. A guttural dominance growl rolled out of Wergarth's chest, so deep it made the chandelier above them hum. Xavier thrashed. For a full minute it was all fury and bloodlust. Then his struggles slowed. The fire in his eyes dissipated. His body went slack, chest heaving in slow breaths. His gaze flicked upward in reluctant recognition to Garth and who he was to him. Wergarth leaned in, jaws peeling open, hot breath flooding Xavier's face. The sound was a promise of more violence if the rogue beast didn't keep it in check. Submit or die. Xavier whimpered once, then turned his head away, bared his front teeth in surrender. The elder wolf stayed there a moment longer, pressing the lesson home. Then, Wergarth let go. "You have granted a one-night visa to a foreign archetype. They may now enjoy the system's influence and the cause traits for werewolves." "A visa?" I pulled up the prompt and searched what the visa meant from the system. Visa pass. A pass given to an individual foreign archetype to safely hunt in the cause domain. The pass can be revoked by the system or the dungeon lord if the archetype breaks the cause rules and the dungeon's archetype traits. As a death core, you can grant unlimited visas to visiting monsters. I reckoned that by foreign, they meant not created originally from the dungeon. I closed the tab. For a moment, the room went quiet. Dust floated in shafts of light, the stink of blood and fur thick enough to choke on. Xavier lay pinned, chest heaving under Wergarth's weight as his submission was sealed and done. Then the system took him. Convulsions racked Xavier's body. At first just a twitch, then full body spasms that sent him thrashing across the floor like he was electrocuted. His claws tore trenches in the boards. His back arched hard enough to crack. Wergarth jerked away, ears flat, growl faltering. A strange magical glow hit the young wolf next. A flash of jade green light blinked and spread across his body. His eyes blazed white, veins crawling with pale fire. His mouth opened wide in a whimpered howl. And then silence. Xavier went still. Chest rising, falling, rising again. He rolled to his knees slow, like a puppet learning new strings. Blood dripped off him, thick on his fur, his claws, and his teeth. But his licking blood was already healing the wounds Wergarth had inflicted. His head turned, eyes lifted, up past the wreckage, past the torn walls and the ruined table. And then, to me, he froze there, the fury no longer stamped in his gaze, trembling with something new. Reverence. At some point, Kevin couldn't take it anymore and snapped, shoved the barricade of chairs and end tables aside with a scrape that made everyone flinch. "Stay here and rot for all I care," he said. He was right, of course. One way or another, if the Delvers hadn't moved for the next half an hour, Luke would burst in through the hidden room adjacent to the bookshelf and usher in some carnage. The others didn't argue. Sure, they were scared, but they also felt like splitting up was a bad idea. At least they had some sense about that. The hallway beyond got darker, which was my doing. Again, mood lightning. They moved tight, sneakers scraping softly, every scuff too loud in the hush of people scared of their own pulse. They turned to a hallway that overlooked outside. Like the windows downstairs, the upstairs windows were also barred tight. Kevin seized the bars, gave them a violent shake like he could bully the house into cracking. The metal didn't even rattle. "Truck's right there," Kevin hissed and gestured to their vehicle right on the driveway like some cruel joke. "We just gotta, unless we can turn into smoke, we're not getting out through that window," Nina interjected. Daryl let out a long, shaky sigh, lips tight around the words. "Anything's possible in this fucking place." Sheila hung back, forehead pressed to the glass, breath fogging it pale. Then she froze. Wait, look. They all crowded around her, 4 faces mashed against the window like a bunch of school kids spying at a peep show. In the garden sat a man, still as taxidermy, sitting on the wrought iron chair with a porcelain cup in hand next to a tiny table with a dessert tray. Not moving, not twitching, lifting the cup now and then for a neat sip and set it down. Who the hell? A broken bar, Daryl started, and trailed off. The man looked up for a heartbeat. He didn't wave. He didn't smile. But somehow, they knew he'd clocked them. Sheila jerked back from the window. I think that's Henry, she said. If he's here, broken bar then, Kate, a broken bar. The silence afterward was sticky and suffocating. Kevin swallowed hard. Nina broke it with a sharp shake of her head. Can we just keep moving? She said quickly and started walking. Daryl placed a hand on Sheila's shoulder. I'm sure Kate's fine. Maybe she's back in town and is also worried for us to come back. Sheila shook her head, eyes glassy. I don't know, Daryl. I'm worried something happened to her. She's strong, Daryl insisted, but his words fell apart halfway through. Sheila. They heard the loud roars of the wolves downstairs, the werewolf brawl in the dining room reverberating across the manor. Yeah. We should keep moving and stay the fuck away from whatever those noises are, Kevin said. Nina was already walking ahead, creeped out from seeing Henry out in the garden. She didn't even want to entertain whatever he was planning to them. She just wanted to escape and get the hell out of town, as far away from Point Hope as possible. Fuck this cursed town, she thought. Like everyone else, she also regretted joining Kevin in his stupid heist. A part of her blamed him for Ray's death, but she knew she couldn't say it out loud to his face. She wanted to. God, I wanted to. She slipped into the next hallway, shoulders tight, scanning. And then she froze. The others piled up behind her, one by one, like cars rear-ending on black ice. Kevin leaned over her shoulder, Daryl bumping close behind, until they all saw it. At the far end of the corridor, crouched low on her haunches, something waited. Not something, someone. Slight frame, long hair tumbling forward to shroud most of her face. But the posture was all wrong. She crouched like an animal, knees high, fingers played on the floorboards, her spine bent in a feral curve, though her hair veiled her face. When she shifted, the gleam came through a 2-pinprick glints that caught the dim light like wet glass. Sheila felt her guts clench, while sharp at the back of her throat, voice trembling on the edge of disbelief. Wendy? The figure cocked her head, slow and insectile, as if the bones in her neck weren't screwed in right anymore. A dry rasp slipped out, not quite a laugh, not quite a growl. Then, without warning, she bolted deeper into the hallway, darting with an inhuman whip-crack of movement, bare feet slapping against the floorboards. Sheila, Daryl muttered. Donta. Wendy. Sheila broke loose, a ragged shout in her throat, legs pumping as she tore after her friend. Sheila. No, Kevin hissed, but it was already too late. Nina lunged to catch her, fingers snagging only air. The 3 of them swore in unison and then sprinted, too late, too far behind. They turned the corner in time to see Wendy's shape slip through a doorway at the middle of the left hall, Sheila vanishing after her without a pause. Kevin jumped into the door first, and what lay beyond wasn't an ordinary room. It was an oval-shaped room with a spiraling staircase. Sheila and the others looked up, a narrow, spiraling throat of stone that climbed upward into blackness. Each step was choked with dust and cobwebs. The air smelled of cold iron and something older, fouler, like blood soaked into the stone long ago and left to rot and permeate. Wendy, wait! Sheila shouted, bouncing off the stone like a bullet ricocheting in a tomb. Kevin grabbed his girlfriend's wrist. Sheila, stop. Let's get out of here before someone hears you shouting her. She could be hurt, Kevin. Sheila yanked her hand loose from his grip and ran up the stairs. Sheila. Kevin bellowed into the spiral, his voice swallowed whole by the tower's hollow lung. Get back here. Sheila didn't answer and continued climbing. Kevin spat a curse. God damn it. He tore after her. So did Daryl. Daryl, wait. Nina grabbed his elbow. I don't think it's a good idea to go up there. Sheila's right. Wendy looks hurt. Who knows what that psycho did to her and how long he has been keeping her here. But something's not right about this. What if Shazer? She's not one of them. She's not. Daryl still had trouble saying the word werewolf. She's not a monster. You said it yourself. Anything's possible in this place. Daryl sighed, hand dipping into his pocket. He pulled out a small, gleaming letter opener and pressed it into her hand. What's this? Nina asked, fingers tightening on the cold metal. Find a place to hide if things go south. This should help. Found it in the smoking room drawers. She turned it over. Metal glinted in the dim light, the handle marked, sterling silver. Silver, she whispered, teeth clenching. Daryl nodded once. I'll be right back. Without another word, he pushed off, boots grinding dust from the stairs as he vanished after Sheila, Kevin, and Wendy. The room seemed to sag behind him, the spiral swallowing sound and shadow, leaving Nina all alone in the dark hallway. Sheila pounded up the stairs, lungs burning, hair plastered to her face with sweat. Each step groaned under their weight, dust puffing up in choking clouds. Ahead, Wendy's silhouette flickered in the shadows, moving with a predatory, unnatural fluidity that made Sheila's stomach coil. Kevin and Daryl followed close behind, their voices swallowed by the tower's hollow spiral as they called after Sheila to slow down. But Sheila didn't dare slow down. Adrenaline pinned her feet to the chase. She saw Wendy vanish through a doorway at the top and Sheila slammed into it, swinging the door open, and spilled into the next room. It was a bedroom. Curved walls stretched up to a ceiling high enough to trap shadows. Dust-laden cobwebs hung in the corners. The furniture, once ornate, now sagged under neglect. Dark wood glimmered with a little rot and age. There was no color and no warmth, just the darkness and the sour tang of decay clinging in the air. It reminded Sheila of Rapunzel if her room was trashed by her evil stepmother and left to rot. Sheila's gaze caught a closet door, cracked just enough to reveal movement. Wendy? Sheila whispered. A soft shuffle answered. She moved and placed her hand to the edge of the door, pushing it slowly. Inside was another dark room. The first thing she saw were the chains, thick iron bars bolted to the walls, some rattling faintly as though recently disturbed. Dust covered the floor, but scratches and scuffs told a story of a desperate struggle. Sheila's stomach sank. This was a cage. And there, crouched in the corner, Wendy rose. Half her face emerged from the shadow, pale skin pressed against her tangled hair. Behind Sheila, Kevin and Daryl arrived, panting. Wendy, are you okay? Sheila stepped closer. Wendy flinched, inching back. It's okay. It's me, Sheila. Don't be afraid. Sheila? Wendy's voice quivered. Yes, it's me. Oh God, a broken bar. What has Henry done to you? Did he a broken bar? Sheila's voice cracked. Kevin stepped into the closet, gently pulling Sheila back. Sheila, a broken bar? What the fuck? She's hurt, babe. We have to help her. Wendy lifted a pale, trembling hand. Sheila grasped it instinctively, warmth passing through the ice-cold fingers. Carefully, they guided her out of the closet and onto the bed. Sheila tugged the curtains by the balcony and draped it around Wendy's thin sundress. She must be freezing, Sheila said. Wendy's sobs shook her body. He a broken bar. He did things to me. Daryl crouched beside her. I swear to God, when I get this asshole psycho a broken bar. What kind of things? Sheila asked. Wendy shook her head violently. Things a broken bar. Things not kind. Things you don't understand. Sheila stroked her back gently. It's okay. We'll get you out. We'll fix this. We're gonna put him in jail. I promise. Kevin knelt before her. Did he a broken bar do anything else? He ignored Sheila, shooting him a deathly glare. Wendy hesitated. He a broken bar made me drink his blood. Kevin's jaw tightened. What for? Sheila pulled the curtains closer, pressing them around Wendy's trembling shoulders. There. Warm now. We can get you downstairs. A broken bar. We'll figure out the rest. Wendy shook her head. Yeah, broken bar can't. Yes, you can, Sheila said firmly. We'll make it. We'll all get out of here. Wendy's eyes darted around the room. Am a broken bar hungry? Sheila glanced at Kevin and Daryl. Do you think we can get her food? Water? Kevin shook his head. Not with what's loose downstairs. It's not safe to stop by the kitchen. Wendy's lips trembled. Sheila, a broken bar. What? What is it, sweetie? You need to run. The monsters? Don't worry. I'm here now. And Kevin's got a gunner number. Wendy's voice was sharp, ice cutting through the air. If you don't run, you're going to die here. Sheila gently brushed Wendy's hair aside and froze. The strands fell away, revealing teeth impossibly long and sharp, catching the little light in the tower, glinting like razors. They were not human teeth. Not anything she had seen before. Everyone staggered back and away from Wendy. Sheila fell off the edge of the bed, heart hammering so loud it seemed Wendy could hear her blood pumping. "Wendy? What a broken bar, what a broken bar." Sheila's voice shook. "Jesus Christ. What the fuck's wrong with her teeth?" Daryl screamed. Wendy rose. The curtains fell from her shoulders. Her movement was impossibly smooth, predatory. Every step, every tilt of her head radiated the hunger coiling inside her like a living thing. "I'm his now," she hissed, voice jagged, filled with unnatural ferocity, "and I'm so broken bar fucking a broken bar hungry." Wendy exploded forward like a spring released from hell. Sheila barely had time to scream before the vampire spawn pinned her to the floor, hands clamping like iron, teeth bared with drool. Sheila kicked and thrashed, trying to push her off, but Wendy's weight was crushing, her fingers like talons digging into her shoulders. The razor-sharp teeth slashed inches from her throat. Sheila's stomach lurched, her vision blurred with panic. Kevin shoved Wendy off Sheila, while Daryl grabbed her shoulders and threw her across the room. The body skidded across the floor, hitting the wall with a sickening crack next to the open closet door. Dust and old plaster rained down on them. That didn't slow Wendy down. Instead, she rolled to her feet and moved with impossible speed. Her limbs bent in ways that made me even flinch. She leapt and crawled along the walls, scaling them like a crab out for blood, movements so fluid and inhuman it made the Delvers scream just witnessing it. The Delvers scrambled to their feet and ran for the doorway, each step a desperate hammer against the floorboards. Then, Wendy struck. She moved faster than the mortal eye could track. Sheila's stomach dropped as she saw the inhuman blur lunge at Daryl, claws digging into his back. "Kevin!" Daryl shouted, eyes filled with tears, pleading for help. Sheila and Kevin couldn't tear their gaze from the horror unfolding. Daryl's arms thrashed, trying to peel Wendy off, kicking and clawing, but the strength coiled in her lithe, unnatural body was overwhelming. Sheila's scream caught in her throat as Wendy's jaws found their mark. Her teeth sank into the side of Daryl's neck, tearing through skin and muscle. Blood sprayed in a sickening arc, hot and metallic, coating the walls, and the floor, and all over Kevin's shocked open mouth. Daryl's scream tore through the room, a ragged, raw sound that echoed in the tower like a church bell of terror. "Get her off me! Get her off me!" Daryl screamed, with a horrifying, fluid motion. Wendy's hands gripped into Daryl's neck. Sheila gasped, instinctively lunging forward, but Kevin caught her shoulder, holding her back as the impossible unfolded. Wendy wrenched, skin, sinew, bone, tearing through everything. Daryl's head came free in her hands like a grotesque, wet, red trophy. She flung it through the open doorway, letting it spin down the spiral staircase below with a sickening thud. The body collapsed to the floor in a twitching, lifeless heap. Wendy crouched over the stump where his head had been, lips pressed to the gaping wound and drank his spurting blood. The sound was wet, sucking, intimate in its horror. Sheila gagged and Kevin's face went white, and without a word, they bolted in terror. Back downstairs a few moments earlier, Nina's feet hovered at the bottom of the spiral staircase, hesitating whether she should follow the others. The hallway beyond was dark, empty, and scary, and she didn't want to be alone. The thought of stepping out on her own and getting into a random room to hide made her gut twist. What if there was something there waiting for her? She should have insisted the others didn't follow Wendy, but she did look hurt. Then she heard it. A scream. Multiple screams from above. The sound ripped through the manor like a blade through cloth. Nina froze. Her ears rang with it, her chest hammering so hard she was sure it would give her away if a monster was listening for fresh prey nearby. A small shadow, maybe a cat, passed over the stairwell. She looked up and what tumbled down toward her wasn't a cat at all. Daryl's head, slick with blood, came spinning through the air like a grotesque projectile. It landed with a wet, sickening thump right in front of her. Blood spraying everywhere from his cracked skull. One of his eyeballs popped right out of its socket and wedged itself on Nina's left boot. "You have gained 1 essence, Daryl Gallagher. You have gained 150 crystals." Nina's scream tore out of her throat before her mind could even process what she just saw. She staggered backward, tripping over the doorframe, and sent her sprawling across the floor in the middle of the hallway. Movement at the end of the hall. At the far end, a familiar monstrous shape waited. Still, silent, watching. Its eyes glimmered like a molten steel, fixed on her. Muscles tensed, chest rising and falling with deliberate, predatory patience. Its teeth caught the little moonlight streaming from the windows, fang tips glinting in warning. Nina's body betrayed her. She couldn't move. Every instinct screamed at her to flee. Move, damn you, move. She screamed inside her head. But she couldn't pry her eyes away from the beast. Nina's limbs were locked with fear, but terror edged into a sudden resolve. She forced her knees to bend, pushed off the floor, and scrambled to her feet as a surge of strength entered her. She welcomed it. Werluke's growl split the air, a low, guttural sound that vibrated in her bones. Then it moved like a black blur, tearing down the hallway toward her. Nina screamed and ran. She didn't dare look back, but she could feel the predator's presence behind her pressing closer with every step. The hallway seemed endless, stretching and twisting as if the manor itself conspired to trap her. Every corner was a trap, every doorway a dead end. Another scream tore out of her, a warning and a plea all at once. Werluke's hot breath, smell of iron and fur, pressed into her back. Nina knew one misstep, one stumble, and she was out for good. Nina realized she was coming to a corner and she needed to slow down. Werluke knew this, too, and its claws sliced through the air, aimed for her head. She froze for a heartbeat, taking in the timing, and then she ducked out of the way. The claws shredded empty air, grazing only the wall behind her. The beast stumbled forward, momentum carrying it into the wall with a bone-jarring thud. Yes! Nina roared in triumph. For a fraction of a second, hope ignited. She had gained some distance and she might have a chance in surviving this. But the hallway ended abruptly. A French-style door blocked her path, glass panes glinting in the dim light. Every second counted. She couldn't waste time fumbling with the handle to open it when the werewolf behind her was already back onto their feet and resuming the chase. And it could be locked. No, I need to keep going. Nina ran, sprinting full tilt, shoulders forward, arms covering her eyes, and braced for impact. She launched herself through the window. With a scream and a crash, she smashed through the panes. Shards rained around her like glittering knives, slicing at the air, some breaking skin around her arm. She burst into the manor's massive conservatory. Momentum carried her over the balcony railing of the terrace overlooking the perfectly manicured and placed trees and vegetation below, and she couldn't stop. She stumbled forward as the world tilted beneath her. She hit the railing hard, ribs jarring into her lungs, and tumbled over. Water met her with a cold, choking splash. She sank into a shallow pond, arms flailing just enough to keep her from hitting the bottom too hard. Ripples spread across the stagnant water as glass shards fell like deadly confetti from above. Nina's blood sang with adrenaline. She had bought herself a moment, maybe more. And she wasn't about to waste it. She needed a place to hide and the beast was drawing close. Scenario 4: 1:20 a.m. 6 hours until dawn. 6 Delvers remaining a broken bar. Sheila's hand slipped on the cold iron of the spiral banister, but she didn't dare slow down. Kevin thundered behind her, both of them half tripping down the winding stairs to safety below. At the bottom, Sheila cried out, "Nina, where are you?" But she was nowhere in sight, busy trying to escape her own encounter with the werewolf. Sheila didn't want to look at Daryl's head on the floor. Kevin yanked her shoulder, already pulling her away from the direction Nina had gone. "It's too late for her. She might be in trouble." "She is in trouble," he snapped. "So are we." "You want to be werewolf chow or vamp chow?" Sheila's eyes burned. "What kind of question is that?" "Neither." "Then move, while they're busy tearing them apart." "But what about the other?" "Don't." He cut her off, jaw clenched. He didn't want to say it out loud, didn't want to picture how many more freaks were circling the manor like hyenas. His brain kept spitting it back at him anyway. "Oh, God, this is a literal nightmare," he screamed inside his head. Hearing the werewolves howling from afar, they shoved through a narrow staff door, hinges shrieking as they opened it. A forgotten service stair waited before them, plunging into the shadows. Sheila froze on the threshold. "Are you sure?" "No," Kevin said. "And I don't give a shit. Let's see where this goes." They took it 2, 3 steps at a time, the air getting colder as they dropped closer to the ground floor. I drifted my many eyes upward to the top of the tower. Wendy pulled herself off Daryl's body, her mouth painted slick red. The euphoria hit her hard, like a drug cut into her veins. Her chest rose and fell in frantic, shallow breaths as though she'd just climaxed. Her eyes, once human a few moments ago, burned like twin crimson embers now, her face shining with gore. She staggered upright like a marionette, giggling softly in this strange, high-pitched, broken melody. She tilted her head down at Daryl's corpse as if she was missing something. Then she bent low, scooped Daryl's ruined body into her arms as if he weighed nothing, and began to sway. 1 2 3, 1 2 3. Her bare feet skated over the dark wooden floor, dragging the slack corpse with her, its heels thumping rhythmically against the floorboards. There was no music in the room, no orchestra, no gramophone, nothing but the echo of her movements, the sway of her clothes, and the faint drip of blood. But Wendy danced as if a phantom waltz filled the tower, as if she could hear violins and cellos rising and lilting. She spun, giggling like a little girl again, and Daryl's body spun with her, limp and headless. I get it now. The human part of Wendy was being devoured by the blood. Her psyche shredded piece by piece as her new vampiric nature burned her humanity like a fever. Henry had warned me of the change before. Once vampirism take hold of a mortal, they were forever changed, and there was no going back. By feeding on Daryl, Wendy's transformation into a spawn was complete. Wendy danced harder, faster, dragging Daryl's corpse through pirouettes as if trying to keep pace with some non-existent crescendo. The sound of her laughter cracked and warped until it wasn't laughter at all, but something far more feral. Far below in the conservatory, Nina broke the pond's black surface, choking on her own breath as she dragged herself to the edge of the stones. Water clung to her clothes, weighing her down as an icy chill gripped her. Her body wanted to fold in on itself. She forced it forward. One more, just one more inch. She staggered on all fours, coughing until her throat burned, her palms raw against the grit of moss and shattered glass. She saw the silver knife on the ground a foot away and she quickly grabbed it, clutching it like a lifeline. A noise from above seized her chest, and she shoved herself fast behind a thick clutch of shrubs. She pressed her mouth into the crook of her arm to muffle the sound of her straining lungs. Don't breathe too loud. Don't make any sudden moves. Don't be prey. The mantra pounded inside her skull. Everything had narrowed to a single, brutal certainty. One mistake and she'd end up like Daryl, headless, bloody, dead. She didn't even know what killed him, but she was not eager to find out. She pulled her knees tight against her chest, eyes darting through the latticework of branches. Beyond the glass roof of the conservatory, bright moonlight peeking behind dark clouds spilled down, illuminating everything in dim light with no shadows deep enough to hide in. But someone above had granted her some luck as dark rain clouds began to roll in and block most of the light, which was quickly followed by a soft drizzle of rain a few seconds later, pattering against the glass roof of the conservatory. I need to move. Can't sit here and wait to be carved open like the others. There were two doors she could see from her vantage point. Both were the same French-style doors made of six-paneled glass, but one led back to the manor and the other lead outside a broken bar toward the shadowy sprawl of the backyard, the hedge maze, the garden, and the greenhouse. She could sneak and get closer toward the door if it was unlocked. She realized none of the windows had any bars or security mesh like the ones inside the building. Could this be the way out? She thought. It was too good to be true. But she had to find out for herself. Nina dug her fingernails into her soaked jeans, holding herself still, straining to hear the predator stalking her. The terrace was silent now, but that didn't mean the beast had left. It could be waiting. I was impressed by her survival instinct so far. Luke was 20 feet above her, crouched like a stone gargoyle. He hadn't taken his eyes off her since she dragged herself out of the pond. Her resolve was low, but nowhere near crimson, nowhere near the killing blow. That meant he still got a lot of work to do to repair essence. He decided the wait-and-see approach on his prey. After all, the conservatory door to the backyard was one of 3 clean exits of the manor. Luke knew it. He was letting her find it, savoring the game by giving her hope. He glanced up at me, grinned wide, and gave a little thumbs up like a kid proud of his little school project. And Nina didn't want to go back inside the manor. I could tell from her face every time she glanced at the door. She was debating whether it was a good idea to go look and find the others. But her instinct was overpowering and she slowly moved toward the backyard door. Luke let her get to it. He glanced up at me and gave me another cheeky thumbs up, proud that the Delver hadn't seen him yet. "You're gonna blow your cover if you keep doing that," I murmured. I hid my smile. He rolled his eyes like I was the boring one. Knife in hand, Nina crept to the door, a part of her cursing at herself for doing such a stupid, classic mistake. If the creature was still in here with her, they would see her clear as day. She braced and tugged the handle. The latch gave, and the door swung wide. Cool air and misty rain blew across her face as if welcoming her back to the land of the living. For one long second, she froze like she didn't believe freedom could be that easy. Then she stumbled forward, 3 stumbling steps onto the backyard stones before a strange feeling yanked her gaze back at the conservatory, back at the doorway into the manor's throat. Nina stood on the slick flagstones, rain biting her face. Her legs wanted to run. Just fucking go. Every nerve screamed at her to bolt across the yard, down to the truck, drive into the night, and get the fuck out of here. But the other Cecilia and Kevina, her throat constricted just thinking about them. She'd heard them scream. She'd seen Daryl's head. Christ, I know he's really dead. And she was just going to leave them? No, if they were up there with Daryl when he got killed, they're probably dead from whatever got him. That meant the smartest move was for her to get to the truck and drive off. Her guilt crawled hot and heavy under her guts. They were probably trapped in some cramped hallway, fighting to survive. If she went back, maybe she could find them, save them. Maybe they could get out of this together. And then what? Drag them past multiple werewolves? How low were their chances of survival if they did that? At that point, the wolves would probably know something was up and block their only way out. Then all of them would be dead. Her hand clenched around the knife. They wouldn't hesitate if it were me. Kevin would drag Sheila out and they'll leave me if they were in my shoes. She bit down hard on her lip. They'll leave me for dead. The latter thought hardened and solidified. She turned her back on the conservatory. One step, then another. Each one felt like tearing her skin from bone as she forced herself to move forward. But then she was running. Wet grass splattering up her jeans, lungs burning in the cold night air, eyes fixed on the faint silhouette of the truck idle at the edge of the gravel drive. Every stride hammered the guilt deeper into her, but she kept going, faster, faster, faster. Then motion snagged her attention. The manor's flanks loomed to her left, its warped glass panes glowing faint from rain-shrouded moonlight. She almost didn't look, almost didn't care, but her gaze caught the blur of bodies moving, 3 figures bursting into view in the indoor pool house. Lope, Kate, Vivian, running full tilt with a jagged animalistic panic that matched her own. Behind them, hulking and impossibly fast, was the shadow of a werewolf stalking them. No, 2 werewolves. Nina stopped mid-stride. She could hear nothing from inside, but she knew what's going on in there. The others had no more room to run. But the truck was right there, just 20 yards away. Her mind raced. Fuck this. She ran for the truck. Lope planted himself in front of Kate and Vivian, the medieval shield with its polished crest heavy in his grip. He found the thing hanging on a display in the hallway when they were fleeing the dining hall, and Lope grabbed it by instinct. He should have grabbed the sword too, but he was in a hurry. His heart pounded, but he set his jaw and raised the shield higher, teeth clenched against the growls circling them. 2 shapes moved with a predator's patience, their claws clacking against the wet tiles. Garth paced left, hackles raised, eyes ember bright in the humid dark. Xavier was worse. His muzzle lifted, lips peeled back to show meat-shredding canines, reveling in their fear. He was a natural blending in with the pack and the system traits he was given, fitting in like a glove. It didn't look like his rogue berserker phase earlier even happened. The brawl he had with Garth long forgotten and in the past. Dog-year memories, I chuckled. Vivian took a step forward despite Lope's arm barring her chest. Xavier, a broken bar please. Her voice trembled, but she pushed it through. You don't have to do this. I know you're in there. You can fight it. You're not a broken bar, you're not a monster. The werewolf tilted its massive skull toward her, a grotesque grin splitting its snout. Its voice came through a rasped, guttural, stretched like torn leather but still undeniably Xavier's. "Don't you see, sister? I have tasted the fruit. I see this world for what it truly is, to suffer. But up here in these mountains, I no longer suffer. I am no longer weak." He paused for a moment. "I no longer grieve, for nothing matters." "They no longer matter." "He matters," Vivian sobbed. "Xavier, a broken bar. For there is only one truth all must abide." His claws scraped across tile as he advanced, savoring the words. "Serve the master. Feed him blood. Offer him flesh. Offer a broken bar yourself." Vivian shook her head, tears streaking down her face. "No. That's not you." "What are you talking about?" "That's not you." Xavier's growl deepened, hungry, mocking. "You should be honored. All of you should. In his domain, your deaths will sing louder than your lives ever did. Give up. Shed your resolve. My brothers and I can make it quick." Or other wolf stepped closer. "I can make you like me. You'd never be weak and pathetic again." Vivian's lips quivered. Something in her eyes flickered. "No." Lope snapped, dragging her back, shield braced like a wall. "That's not your brother anymore, Viv. Whatever he was, it's gone. That's just a monster talking with his voice." Wergarth barked once, sharp and commanding. "Stop playing with the food, boy." He watched their resolve slowly drip away. "A broken bar. All they need now is one little push or broken bar." The two wolves began to circle tighter, their movements a closing vice. Lope tightened his grip on the shield until his knuckles burned white, sweat stinging his eyes. Kate clutched Vivian's hand, dragging her behind, her own chest hitching in frantic gasps. Wergarth laughed at their fear. "How about we start by mincing your sister into shreds of meat?" Xavier smiled. "Gladly, brother." And then the world tore open with the sound of shattering windows and screaming metal. Headlights flared across the pool tiles, blinding, searing. The truck roared out of nowhere, bursting through the side wall of the pool house in an apocalyptic storm of glass. Nina didn't dare stop behind the wheel, as she barreled toward the monsters ahead, flooding their forms in yellow light. "Fuck you!" Nina screamed with a feral roar. The truck's front end smashed into Xavier with a bone-splitting crunch, hurling him backward across the tiles and pinning his body against the tiled wall. The wall cracked like porcelain, spiderweb fractures racing upward. Xavier howled a wet, guttural bellow, his claws raking furrows into the hood of the truck as he thrashed. "Nina!" Kate screamed, half in terror, half in disbelief. Wergarth didn't hesitate. He leapt for the driver's side, claws smashing through the window in a spray of glass. His monstrous snout thrust through the opening, teeth snapping inches away from Nina's face. Nina shrieked, scrambling for anything until her hand found the hilt of the silver knife resting on the cup holder. With all her fear and rage behind it, she drove the blade down hard. The steel punched into Garth's thick, furred forearm, burning smoke rising where metal kissed flesh. "Gawah!" Wergarth howled. The werewolf screeched and reeled back, arm smoking, his muscles convulsing. He staggered, body curling in agony, and then turned tail, scurrying back into the shadowy corner with an animal's desperate whine as he struggled to pull the metal off his flesh. He bit the handle, gritting through the pain as he yanked the metal loose from his flesh. Xavier snarled as he braced his legs. With a violent roar, he shoved off the crumpled hood, metal shrieking under the strain, and slipped free. His eyes locked on Lope, Kate, and Vivian, a murder gleaming in every sinew as he coiled to spring. And then the opposite door across the pool house burst open. Gunfire erupted. Kevin stormed in, pistol raised, and unloaded into the beast. Muzzle flashes strobed across the glassy ruins of the pool house. "Stop, stop, stop!" Vivian pleaded to her uncle, but he didn't stop. He didn't know he was shooting at his own nephew. Xavier jerked under the impacts, hot blood spattering across tile and water, his howl breaking into a panicked whine. He staggered back, scurrying toward Wergarth, and both werewolves jumped out of the now broken wall and slipped into the darkness. Their wounds began to heal and stitch themselves close seconds later. In a few minutes, they'll be good as new. After the werewolves disappeared, the pool house stank of wet fur, chlorine, and spent gunpowder. Broken glass glittered on the tiles like ice under fluorescent lights, and the rippling pool reflected the chaos in warped shapes. For a beat, none of them moved. They just stood there, breathing, bleeding, trembling, but glad they were still alive. Then Kate locked eyes with her sister. "Sheila?" Her voice cracked, disbelieving, as if she were afraid the vision would vanish. "Oh my God." "Sheila." Kate. Kate barreled forward, and Sheila met her halfway, both of them crashing into each other in a desperate embrace. Tears streaked both their faces, silent at first, then breaking into fitful sobs. They clutched each other so tightly it looked like they might fuse together. For one small, impossible moment, the nightmare faded away, their resolve ticking upward to a brighter yellow. Across the room, Vivian stood apart from the rest, her eyes still locked on the shattered wall where Xavier had vanished with Garth. Her lips quivered as she dropped to her knees, her whole body shaking from the pit that opened inside her stomach. Kevin came over, still holding the pistol, his boots scrunching on broken glass. "Viv, what's your problem?" "Where's Xavier?" Vivian swallowed hard. "Uncle Kevin, a broken bar, you shot him." That was Xavier. Her eyes brimmed over with tears, voice strangled. "He's gone, a broken bar, he's gone." Kevin froze, words also lodging in his throat. He wasn't good at these and never had been. Comfort wasn't his weapon. He shifted uncomfortably, then did the only thing he could. He reached out and squeezed her shoulder. He always had a soft spot for Vivian. He liked Xavier, but Vivian was smarter and actually had a promising future if she actually get out of town and detached herself from her brother's hip. Sometimes, he couldn't believe she's David's kid. "Don't you dare cry now," he said bluntly. "You're not weak, Viv. If you keep acting like this, you're gonna get yourself killed and end up like your brother." "Sucks for him, but you're my brother's kid, so I'm going to get you out of here." "He's not dead, Uncle." "Turning into that is just as good as dead." Vivian shrugged off his hand and glared at him. "Screw you. You're the reason why he's here. He wouldn't end up like that if he didn't listen to you." "God, you're such an asshole." She walked past him toward the truck and climbed through the back. Kevin groaned as if he was too old for this shit. "God, I saved everyone and this is all the thanks I get?" Lope, still standing guard with the battered medieval crest shield strapped to his arm, bent down to pick up the silver knife Nina had driven into Garth's arm. He walked over to the truck, held it out to her through the broken window. "I think you dropped this." "Thanks for the save. Hey, I guess you all owe me one." Nina's hand trembled as she took it back. She met Lope's eyes, then the rest of them. "Yo, we can't stay out here all night. There's more of them coming. We need to move now." They piled into the truck. Nina remained behind the wheel and started the engine, and miraculously, it still roared to life. "Yes, it still works," she said excitedly. Lope sat on the passenger's seat and drummed a nervous beat on the dash with his fingers. "Let's get the fuck out of here, eh?" He was jittery but grinning, eyes flicking like he wanted to be anywhere except where he was, yet thrilled all the same. The others crammed into the back with their half-looted cargo. Vivian had to sweep some of the junk aside just to carve herself a square foot of space. Nina backed out of the pool and through the wrecked wall she made, and then jammed her foot down on the pedal, causing the truck to lurch forward into the dark. "When I get out of here," Nina started, "I'm taking the longest goddamn shower of my life." Lope laughed. "Shower? Fuck that. I want a cheeseburger the size of my head." Vivian interjected from behind the passenger seat. "Or, a broken bar, we can go to the cops." The cab went quiet. Nina locked eyes with Lope, then she pasted on a smile sharp enough to convince herself. Yeah, we will, sweetie." From the back, Kevin shouted, "What?" "We're not going to the cops." Kate snapped her head up, one arm around Sheila. "Are you insane, Kev?" "Of course we're going to the cops. FBI, CIA, the fucking National Guard, maybe the whole army should come here and nuke the place. If we have to." "And tell them what, Kate?" Kevin's tone was ice cold. "That vampires and werewolves tried to eat us?" "Yeah, genius. See how far that gets you." Lope blinked and turned around from his seat. "Hold on a minute. Did you just say vampires?" As if on cue, a sudden blur of black and pale came screaming down from the sky. Wendy hit the hood in a graceful thud, landing feather-light where no human body her size should. She didn't even crumple the hood. Her smile smeared across her blood-caked mouth, and she lifted one hand and wiggled her fingers at Nina through the windshield. a twisted parody of a friendly wave. "Holy shit," Nina hissed, and shoved the pedal down hard. The truck fishtailed across the wet grass, tires spitting mud as Nina gunned it toward the open gates. The speedometer needle twitched higher and higher. "Jesus Christ, get her off." Lope slammed his palm on the dash, panic slipping into his voice. Nina jerked the wheel hard to shake the vampire off. The truck swerved left, then right, the world outside a blurring as they went. Wendy only laughed like she was enjoying a carnival ride. She quickly crawled up the windshield, fingers scoring faint tracks in the glass, then perched on the roof. The metal groaned above them under her weight. "Stay down," Kevin barked from the back, leveling his pistol upward. "Don't shoot inside the truck," Nina snapped. "You might hit one of us." As the Delvers panicked, I caught their mistake. The back of the truck had never been latched shut in their rush to pile inside. And Wendy saw it, too. With a gust of wind and a sudden jolt of weight, Wendy backflipped, grabbed the edge of the roof, and swung and into the open bay, landing in a crouch directly in front of Sheila with a mischievous smile. "Oh, there you all are," Wendy said. Sheila screamed, scrambling back against the truck wall, while Kate's breath hitched sharp enough to cut her throat. Her best friend stood there, drenched in blood, eyes lit with a predator's fire. "Wendy?" Kate whispered as she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Saying her name dragged with it years of friendship, late-night secrets, and good memories, all of it curdling into a hurricane of terror that left her frozen for a long moment. "Kate!" "It's not Wendy anymore," Sheila screamed. For half a heartbeat, recognition crossed Wendy's face. Then the hunger took over. Her head twitched and her mouth split wide as she launched toward Sheila. "You screamed too much," Wendy said to Sheila. "No," Kate shouted. Kevin tried to line up his shot, but the truck jolted over uneven ground, and the two women were a tangled mess of clawing limbs and ragged shrieks. He cursed and pulled back, sweat dripping down his temple. His finger hovered on the trigger, afraid to pull it. Nina heard the chaos in the back but couldn't take her eyes off the rain-slicked road ahead. "What the hell is happening back there?" "She's here," Kevin roared. "She's in the goddamn truck." Wendy had Sheila pinned, forearm grinding into her throat, claws peeling fabric from her jacket like paper. Her fangs snapped inches from the pulse hammering in Sheila's neck. Sheila bucked and kicked, adrenaline-fueled strength barely keeping her alive. Kate's gaze darted for a weapon around the truck. Her hands found the heavy gilt frame of a painting, one of the Manor's stolen trinkets. She seized it and swung hard against Wendy's back. The corner of the frame crunched into Wendy's ribs with a meaty thunk. The vampire hissed and staggered sideways, eyes blazing with annoyance. Sheila shoved her off hard, breaking free just long enough to breathe and crawl out of the way. But just as Wendy was about to attack Kate, Vivian took her chance. She launched forward, both feet driving into Wendy's chest in a hard drop kick that sent the vampire tumbling backward. The next lurch of the truck did the rest. Momentum flung her straight out the open bay. She rolled once across the slick grass and gravel, then was swallowed by the dark. The others could no longer see her as they drove further away. Vivian slid forward, almost pitching out herself, but Kevin's hand shot out with an iron grip on her arm, yanking her back from the edge. Kate dropped the painting, its frame splintering against the floor, and seized Sheila in a trembling embrace. I thought she had you," she sobbed into her sister's hair. Sheila clung back and cried. "You okay, kid?" Kevin pulled Vivian deeper into the truck. "That was some kick you got." "Vampires are real, too?" Vivian asked. Kevin holstered the pistol, jaw clamped tight, scanning the black behind them. "Yep, seems like this place is a fucking monster zoo." Lope turned in his seat, face pale. "How about next time?" he snapped. "We close there." "Fucking door?" Wendy hit the asphalt with a bone-rattling smack, skidding across the gravel-strewn drive. She twisted like a cat, landing half-crouched, half-crumpled, her fingers clawing at the ground to stop her from rolling further. Unlike Roy, who was an enhanced mortal as a familiar, vampire spawns were elite monsters of their own that could hold their ground against other delvers, worthy enough to be close to the same strength as an archetype. It would take more than a corkscrew to kill her. Her lips curled back, fangs bared, eyes glowing an animal red as she watched the truck's backlights slowly faded in the distance. She shot to her feet, blood-slick hair clinging to her cheeks. "That bitch kicked me," Wendy shrieked, voice carrying across the mountain night like breaking glass. "Ugh, I'm going to cut her first, limb by limb." She flung her arms wide, as though ready to sprint after the truck. But a figure stepped from the shadows of the gate's stone arch. Duke Henry. He glided silently toward her, unhurried, his shoes barely inches off the ground, the black coat flaring just slightly as he floated toward his spawn. He raised one pale hand in her direction as he landed next to her. "This is not a hunt," Henry reminded her. Wendy froze mid-step, chewing the words she wanted to say. "They're mine," she hissed. "I can taste them still. I'm fast enough that I think I canna." "It's not about being fast, dear. It's against the rules." "On whose rules?" Henry shook his head slowly. "Our liege. We have not been chosen by the Delvers, and so we will stay here." The word "him" sent a ripple of cold through the air. Wendy's lip trembled, rage burning hotter than her shame. She looked like she wanted to spit in Henry's face, but something primal in her blood reminded her what he was, who he was to her. She lowered her gaze, snarling, but did not move. "Wendy, darling, do not pout. You've done well tonight. I'm impressed in how you savored your kill. I could have done more if not for these stupid rules and the stupid colors of their resolve. We're vampires. We can do whatever we want. He's not doing anything anyway. It's us who does all the work, all the killing." Henry's head snapped toward her so suddenly it was as if his neck would break. The crimson glow in his eyes flared brighter, and the air itself seemed to constrict around them. His voice came like a lash. "Stupid?" he repeated, the syllables dragging with a cruel weight. "You dare call his Lua, our Lord's Lua, stupid?" Wendy flinched, but her pride made her bare her fangs. "I just meant her." Henry's hand shot forward, faster than she could track. His fingers closed around her jaw, tilting her face up to his. The tips of his nails pressed into her skin, just enough to break it, letting rivulets of blood bead and run down her neck. "You are mine," he hissed, voice trembling with controlled rage. "My spawn, my shadow, an extension of myself, and you would dishonor the one who made all this possible by tarnishing his gifts? Our liege, who raised us from our pitiful existence and gave us power. Power you now enjoy? Do you know that our Lord Dungeon can easily strike you down with one thought?" Wendy whimpered, but the sound was half growl. Her nails dug into Henry's wrist, though she knew she couldn't pry him off. "Henry, a broken bar," I started. But Henry raised a finger and leaned in until his lips brushed her ear. "Such insolency, a broken bar, such arrogance from you. It reeks of a minion unworthy of her master's favor. I should have taught you reverence. Perhaps that is my failing. Perhaps you need a reminder. Speak ill of our liege again and I will not hesitate to cut off your head." "Do I make myself clear?" "Clear, my lord." "Very clear." He shoved her back hard enough that she stumbled across the gravel, catching herself on all fours like an animal. His coat billowed as he straightened, his expression smoothing back into a terrible calm, gentlemanlike. "I apologize for my spawn, my lord." Such are the shortcomings of their kind. Always eager to bite more than they can chew, Henry's gaze sharpened again, locking on her trembling form. "But you will learn, Wendy. You will learn. I'll see to it personally before you offend me and the denizens of this domain with such foulness. I will make you worthy and proper in our liege's eyes." I wanted to interrupt that it wasn't that serious, but it didn't look like Henry would appreciate my interference as he corrected what he thought was an inexcusable behavior of his minion. "I accept your apology, Duke," I said. Henry sighed in relief. He then turned back to his spawn. "Go back to the manor. Clean yourself up. You're filthy." She staggered to her feet and slunk off toward the manor, silent, humiliated. Henry kept his gaze fixed on the empty road where the Delvers had fled. Then he pursed his lips and let out a sharp whistle. 3 massive shapes thundered from the shadows, Garth, Luke, and Xavier, their fur bristling, their claws gouging the earth as they tore through the open gate, ran past Henry, and went after the truck. The vampire didn't even flinch as the gust from their wake tousled his coat and perfectly brushed hair. "Happy hunting, little pups." Henry turned toward the manor. The truck rattled down the 2-lane strip of asphalt, its headlights slicing into the dark. 30 minutes of the same stretch of road, the same trees, the same black teeth of the looming mountain pressing close. Nina's eyes burned as she's focused on the road, her knuckles tight on the wheel. I'm telling you for the 15th time. This road has no exit. It will keep looping and looping until we run out of gas, or worse. Uncle, please listen to me, Vivian said, loud now than the previous time she tried explaining what she and Xavier experienced earlier in the night. She jabbed her finger at the side window where the rain-slick shapes blurred by. Look, that's my wrecked car. And the sports car that Kate was driving. We passed it before. See, Kate, do you know about this? Kevin asked. Kate leaned closer to the glass. Ahead, a weathered sign creaked in the wind, paint peeling under the beam of the headlights. Cedar Pines Summer Camp. Her stomach dropped. She's right, Kate said. I didn't notice the loop before, but Vivian's telling the truth. We've been going around in circles. They drove on for a few more seconds until the narrow spur of gravel to the Sawyer farmhouse rose out of the woods, and then vanishing into shadow as they drove past. A couple of minutes later, the sharp bend that broke into the gravel track leading toward the cabin. Nina swallowed hard but didn't dare stop. The thought of pulling over, killing the truck's engine, felt like signing everyone's death warrant. Lope drummed his fingers restlessly against his thigh. So Broken Bar, what the hell do we do then? Just keep going in circles until we run out of gas, or for those things to come get us? The Sawyers know these mountains. They grew up around here, Kate said. She already told them that she suspected the Sawyer brothers might be all werewolves and that they were the ones hunting them. Then we find somewhere they're not familiar with and hide there, Sheila cut in. Kevin groaned, dragging his palm down his face. Not this shit again. Hear me out. Hiding in the manor was idiotic, sure, but what if there's another place, somewhere they don't expect for us to go? Like where? Kevin shot back. You see a Motel 6 out here? The campgrounds, Kate suggested. Leo and Danny Hardy closed the camp 4 years ago. The buildings aren't run down or totally ruined. Most of them are still intact and highly defensible. There might be a phone or something we can find in there to call for help, too. Sheila's eyes lit up. Like a radio? Yes, like a radio. I know the place. A bunch of my classmates used to trespass and go there to drink, party, and Javier. Vivian stopped herself from saying too much when she noticed all of the adults looking at her. Okay, fine, I've been there before for a party. But the cops got wind of it, so they always sent out a patrol there to check around the premises. That gave her an idea. What if we go there and then maybe the sheriff or one of his deputies drive by? Maybe they can rescue us. Kev, Lope said, turning in his seat, it's worth checking out, man. We just have to hold on until dawn, Nina said. Kate blinked. Until what? Until dawn. That's what the woman said before she Broken Bar. Never mind. She called this place a weird name. A Broken Bar. What was it? A Broken Bar? A dungeon. Said half of this mountain is a dungeon, so, to survive, I think Sheila is right that we have to hunker down and barricade ourselves somewhere safe. The camp might be our best bet. Don't remind me, Kevin said. She also mentioned she has plenty of friends. What's next? Zombies? Frankenstein? The Mummy? Sheila rolled her eyes. Zombies? Really? What? They're scary, all rotting and shit. Yuck. Could be more, Lope muttered. Place is crawling with freaky shit already. Why not a chupacabra, too? Or Bigfoot, Sheila added. Or Jason Voorhees, Kate also added, letting out a soft chuckle. We're going to a campground next to a creepy lake after all. Don't joke around about this, guys, Nina snapped. If Ray hadn't opened those doors? Vivian's head jerked up. Sheila chimed in to explain. When Ray entered the vault back at the manor, there were these weird doors. He opened the door with wolves drawn on it, and then Thea Broken Bar. Well, a Broken Bar, the werewolves came and attacked us. That lady, Henry's assistant, told us that the werewolves are hunting us because we opened that particular door. Lope scoffed. So Broken Bar. If Ray opened more doors to Broken Bar, I guess there will be more monsters coming after us, Nina answered. That woman sounded really disappointed she wasn't the one that got picked. That made Lope feel weirdly better. At least we know only one type of monster is hunting us, right? Why did the vampires attack us then? Sheila asked. They were quiet for a moment until Kate answered. Maybe it's because we're in their house. Henry lives there. Maybe that gives him permission to go after us, hunting together with the werewolves. In the books and in the movies, dungeons have lairs, right? What if the manor are the vampire's lair and the Sawyer farmhouse we escaped from were the werewolves? Another pause. Sheila's eyes darkened. What do you think will be waiting for us in the campgrounds? Whose lair will it be? They didn't have an answer. They didn't want to even entertain the idea of what monster lurked in there. Vivian shivered, hearing Madame Dallaire's voice in her memory. Never go into those mountains, Vivian. Never. She hugged her knees tight. She broke that promise. This place make me feel like I'm in one of Xavier's video games. Usually in those games, we clear a level or a lair by killing the monsters that live in it. We don't know how many there are, Kevin said. I count 3, Lope said. 3 werewolves. One inside the manor that attacked Trey and me. The second one outside the manor preventing our escape. Then, there's Xavier who killed that other guy. Zuraj. His name is Zuraj, Vivian said. And the one in the tunnel chasing us to the manor. I think that was Alan Sawyer, Kate added. There's 3 Sawyer brothers. So, 4 werewolves are after us. Nina's stomach went cold. Her hands clenched harder on the wheel. Wait. If Garth and Luke are at the manor with Xavier or a broken bar, then where's Alan? And the forest answered her. A crash of timber. Something colossal tore open and exploded out of the tree line. A blur of fur and fangs, barreling like a freight train toward them. Alan Sawyer, the Alpha, hit the side of the truck like a goddamn wrecking ball. Metal screamed, glass burst inward, and the whole world turned over itself. The steering wheel tore out of Nina's hands, spinning wild under her palms. The windshield went white with spider cracks. Metal screamed and buckled as the truck jumped the asphalt, nose dragging into gravel, before the ditch caught them broadside and turned the whole world inside like a washing machine. Everything came loose at once. The roof was the floor and was the roof again. Nina felt her body tear against the seatbelt, her stomach lurching into her throat as glass exploded inward, needling her face and arms. Lope slammed into the dash with a grunt, then was flung back like a rag doll, the seatbelt securing him in place. Behind them, the cargo bay was pure carnage. Kevin's bulk ricocheted off the wall. Sheila's scream turned liquid as her shoulder cracked against steel, Kate clutching her sister even as both were thrown like dice in a tin can. Vivian's cries were cut sharp, then vanished under the grinding of metal. The truck rolled one more sickening half-turn before it stopped on its side, laying on its flank like a slaughtered beast. The noise didn't stop, not right away. Steel and metal popped and settled, small shards rained down, the engine hissing like a wounded animal. Then the silence came after, broken only by the collective groans of the half-stunned, half-broken delvers inside. Kate groaned, pushing herself upright in the tilted cabin. Bruises sang in her ribs. Lope spat out something hot and wet, maybe a tooth, and cursed under his breath. He looked up to see Nina dangled above him, strapped in, half hung by the seatbelt, and preventing her from falling on top of him. Sheila clutched her arm, staring at the blood dripping down her wrist but not registering it that she might have sprained and cut her arm during the roll. Viv. Kevin's voice cut through the ringing inside his ears. He scrambled toward the back. A heap of heavy frames had buried Vivian, gilt edges and cracked canvases pinning her down. She whimpered, trying to kick and wiggle herself free. Kevin tore them off, one after another, until he dragged her into the open area. Her lip was split, half of her face covered in blood, but otherwise she was fine. Kevin took her off his jacket, tore it up, and wiped Vivian's face. I want to get out of here, Uncle, Vivian said. You're okay. We're okay. He wiped most of the blood off her. I'm sorry for what I said earlier. With what? If I'm gonna die here, I want to say sorry for calling you a piece of shit. Kevin couldn't help but smile and chuckle about that. Well, you're not wrong. I just want to go home. Come here. Kevin pulled Vivian into a hug and whispered in her ear, and I'm sorry for bringing the two of you here. I'm gonna get you out, okay? I'm gonna get you out. I promise. Vivian sobbed and buried her face into his shoulder. She said nothing back. Back at the front, Nina strained at the belt, panic rising. Get me down. Someone cut me down. It's stuck. Lope scrambled over, reaching for her. No matter how many times he pressed the red button to unlatch Nina's seatbelt, it wouldn't come off. Okay, hang on. Just hang on, I'll cut you loose. I dropped my knife somewhere. I can't find it. Lope looked around but couldn't find it. His eyes landed on the glove box compartment and opened it, where a bunch of crumpled tissue papers, unopened letters, loose candies, and random stuff poured out. Luckily, Lope found a box cutter. "I found something that might help. Hurry." Lope started sawing through the seatbelt. A low, rolling growl slipped through the cracks of the truck. Everyone froze as they felt a presence stalking in around them. The growl grew closer and louder. "Hurry," Nina whispered. Lope kept sawing through the belt, cutting halfway through. And then the driver's side door tore open like wet paper, hinges screaming against everyone's ears. In one horrible wrench it ripped away, thrown high, and vanished into the dark woods. The werewolf's massive frame blotted out the little light of the night above the opening. Then, the beast reached in. Claws like rebar hooked around Nina's torso. She screamed and braced against the wheel, clutching Lope's arm with everything she had. "Oh my God, he's got me, he's got me. Don't let go," Lope roared. Kate and Sheila lunged too, grabbing at Nina's legs, arms, her belt, her shirt, anything they could hold. For a heartbeat it was a desperate tug of war. Alan pulled with barely a strain in his muscles and Nina was ripped from her seat like a rag doll. Her nails tore bloody crescents into Lope's arm before she slipped away. Alan hurled her through the air and crashed across the asphalt, rolling until she skidded to a stop in the beam of the truck's tilted headlights, in full view of everyone inside the truck. Nina tried to crawl, dragging herself toward the ruined truck, but her right leg wasn't working. A deep jagged slash ran down her thigh, the muscle torn open by Alan's claws. Her hands slapped uselessly at the pavement, leaving smears of red as she sobbed for help. The others watched from the broken windshield, paralyzed. Sheila was shaking, whispering no, no, no like a prayer. Vivian pressed herself into Kevin's side, refusing to lift her head and watch. Lope had both hands clamped on his bleeding arm where Nina had scratched him. "Fuck. What do we do? What do we do?" Kate muttered, lost. In the headlights, Nina screamed and dragged herself another foot closer. Alan prowled after her from the periphery, the way a cat might approach a crippled bird. His shadow stretched monstrously long across the road, swallowing her whole. And where Alan was a sight to behold. The Alpha. The beams of the truck's headlights fell upon him, and in that instant, he seemed less a beast and more an apparition risen from the deepest depths of nightmares. A horrifying monstrosity you'd pay to see on a large IMAX screen. He was a full head taller than his pack, larger too, his form a blasphemy of proportion. His shoulders were massive, his chest broad and unyielding, and the play of sinew beneath the pelt glistened with strength. The fur clung sleek to him, dark as iron under the silvering light of the receding rain clouds, unshroud the full moon again from above. His muzzle elongated into a dreadful mask of hunger, and when his lips peeled back, they revealed not the simple fangs of an animal, but a multitude of teeth, ivory white and gleaming, serrated in tears where his breath steamed in the night air, fetid, intoxicating, every exhalation a promise of the exquisite ruin he would bring. His claws, long and curved, glistened in the headlights beam like the polished talons of a falcon bred for slaughter. But it was the eyes that made him sublime and horrifying to look at. They burned with a lambent glow of an orange fire dredged from the bowels of hell. Yet within them lay cunning and intelligence unearthly and cruel, savoring the agony of the girl who clawed feebly across the asphalt. The gaze was not of hunger alone, it was adoration of the suffering and pain, as though her terror were a rare perfume he inhaled with complete rapture. Kate's breath went ragged. He got a lot bigger. Kevin kept his gaze on him. "I guess we found the pack leader." Lope scrambled up to get out through the open door, but Kevin lunged and grabbed his legs, pulling him back. "What are you doing?" "I'm going to help her," Lope said to Kevin. "That's what he wants you to do." "We need to get the hell out of here," Kevin said. "But we're not just going to leave her there." Kevin gritted his teeth. "Come on, Viv. Let's open the back door and run for the woods." "Uncle." "Now." Alan paused, looming above Nina. Then, he threw back his head and howled. The sound ripped through the air, a bellow of authority and power, vibrating in the bone and blood. The woods answered him. Multiple voices rose, harmonizing in that dreadful key, high and low, shrill and primal, until the night itself shook with the chorus of werewolves. Nina froze, her breath catching, heart a hammering drum. She was dragging her ruined leg, the pain a white-hot spear stabbing through her nerves. But for a second, just a second, she thought maybe she could get back to the truck. If she could just reach Kevin or Lope's hand, maybe she'll survive. Maybe if they come out and helped hear a broken bar, maybe a broken bar. Were Garth and were Luke exploded from the shadows, moving faster than any living thing should. Before Nina could even scream, they were upon her. A claw raked across her back, tearing fabric, skin, and muscle. The shock was instant, numbing. Then the fire came, a searing pain that forced the air out of her lungs in a ragged howl of her own. Not like this. Not me. Please, God, please. But her prayer was answered with teeth. Luke slammed his jaws into her shoulder, bones crunching like dry sticks. She felt her collarbone snapping inward, the blood rushing hot and wet down her arm, her nerves screaming with unbearable static. Her vision went black at the edges. I don't want to die. I don't want to. Garth's weight drove her down. His claws pinned her ribs onto the pavement, digging into her like iron hooks, and puncturing her lungs. She tried to scream for Kevin, for Sheila, but all that came was a bubbling gurgle. Blood filled her throat, metallic and hot, drowning her words. The others inside the truck screamed. She saw their faces through the shattered windshield. Kate's hands on the glass, Lope's mouth wide in horror, Vivian's eyes huge, Kevin pulling her back, shouting something she couldn't hear. They were still alive. They were still safe. At least the monsters haven't gotten to them. They shoulda. She realized it then. She was already gone. The beasts weren't killing her. They were devouring her. Teeth tore into her stomach, a ripping sound like wet fabric. She felt her insides spill out. The strange, terrible release of pressure as her body gave way. Pain and relief mixed until her mind couldn't tell the difference. Her body convulsed like a twitch of a dying animal. Dad. I want my dad. I don't want this. Not like this. For a small moment, she imagined her father waiting for her at the end of the road. And for that small moment, she felt a broken bar. Relieved that she would be seeing him again. What would he say? What would he say? What would he say? Please, let me hear it. Her vision tilted, the headlights refracting in her tears, turning the world into streaks of blotting white. The Alpha just looked down at her broken form with unreadable eyes. She saw the blur of claws and fur and teeth above her, the monsters working in tandem like starving jackals, and then her world tore in half. Luke bit into her hip. Garth ripped at her chest. Together they wrenched hard into opposite directions, snarling in frenzied unison until Nina was split in half. Half of Nina, the head and torso, collapsed on the pavement, her arms still twitching. The other half dragged across the asphalt in Garth's jaws, a trail of gore painting the road. The last thing she saw were the others running into the woods, swallowed by the shroud of darkness that hung over it. You have gained one essence, Nina Travers. You have gained 150 crystals. Scenario 4203 AM. 5 hours until dawn. 5 delvers remaining. A broken bar. They ran until their lungs burned, until every muscle screamed, until the black maze of the trees blurred together into a single suffocating wall. And still they ran, herded by Nina's shrieks and dying screams fading behind them. They catch their breath once they reached a shallow creek a mile away from the main road. They had been running for more than 12 minutes non-stop. Kate and Kevin were the lookouts since they were the only ones who bothered to grab flashlights from the wreckage, their only source of light in the dark. Sheila dropped where she stood, clutching at the earth as though she might anchor herself to it. Vivian slid down beside her from exhaustion, fighting the urge to puke. Lope loomed just a few feet apart, shield dragging at one side, the silver knife clenched loosely in the other. Luckily, he found it in the rubble inside the truck cabin before they fled for the woods. He looked like a knight in some cruel parody. His sword was a little more than a kitchen utensil. It was their only weapon they knew was effective against the werewolves. Kevin broke the silence first. Hey, if we cross the water, we might be able to lose them. Running water will mask our scent. Lope snorted. Yeah, sure. Mythbusters tested that, man. Dogs can still track us really good across creeks or running water. Also, we're dealing with werewolves here, not hunting dogs. I bet they've got some crazy fucking sense of smell. Kevin frowned at him, the beam of his flashlight aimed on Lope's damp face. You seriously watch that nerdy shit? Helps drown out the noise at work, Lope muttered. Leaf blowers. Engines. A ghost of a smirk moved across Kevin's face, but it died quick. The silence moved back in. Kate finally spoke up. Something's not right. I think we're going in circles. We've been running blind for a long time here, and God knows in what direction. For all we know, we're deeper into their territory. Are we even close to the campgrounds? She turned to look at Vivian. Vivian's cheeks flushed. Hey, it was one time and I didn't go to the woods at all. It was Xavier who drove me there, so I don't remember much. Kevin shook his head. Then we have no choice but to continue. Stay together. Stay quiet. If we keep moving, they can't pin us down. Lope spat into the mud. Or we burn ourselves out, and then when they decide to stop playing with us, we start dropping like flies. Better than sitting out here waiting, Kevin shot back. Kate's voice cut between them. What if we split up? Sheila stared at her, bewildered. Split up? Are you insane? That's what they want. That's what predators do, scatter the herd so they can go for the kill. Could it be possible that they lost track of us? Lope asked. I don't think so, Kevin said. They have the perfect opportunity to take us out in that truck, but they didn't. Why? They let the question lingered in the air for a long moment. Sheila answered, because they're toying with us. They just don't want to kill Issa Broken Bar. They want us scared, desperate, making mistake Issa Broken Bar and to give up. The reward better be fucking worth it, Kevin muttered. Seriously, man? That doesn't matter right now, Lope said. Of course it fucking matters. Daryl, Ray, Xavier, and Nina died for nothing if it doesn't matter. Uncle, I'm not really comfortable staying out here for too long, Vivian said. We should keep moving. All right. Sorry, break time's over, folks, let's keep it moving. They started walking again. The forest loosened its grip on them the further they went. The press of trees began to thin, the claustrophobic latticework of branches opening into something wider, finally allowing them to see the partly darkened sky and moon above. The delvers stumbled forward, their boots dragging through damp leaves, until suddenly the woods spat them out onto a wide clearing. Ahead of them was the cabin. It rose out of the dark like some great slumbering bear, hulking, patient, waiting. Its windows were like dead black eyes. No lights glowed within, no cars sat in the muddy parking space, no evidence that anyone had been around recently. There was a garden shed hunched not far from the west, stooped in the shadows. Even the stream of moonlight, weak as it was, seemed to shy away from touching either structure. Kevin finally said what all of them were thinking. Looks like nobody's home. This isn't the campgrounds, Kate said. I was right. We must have turned around and took the wrong trail. Maybe if we follow the shore around the lake, we can reach it, Sheila suggested. Vivian shook her head hard, hair sticking to her damp cheeks. We're going to keep walking? Nope. No freaking way. I don't want to walk in the dark anymore. Not with her. She stopped herself, shuddering. Not with those things still after us. Kevin nodded. My niece got a point. This cabin's a blessing. Howl echoed faintly in the woods behind them. The sound pushed them forward like a cattle prod. Oh, shit. Lope jerked back from the tree line. His voice cracked, betraying the bravado he had been holding ever since Nina was taken by the werewolves. Am I tripping, or did that sound really fucking close? Kevin grabbed Sheila and Vivian by their wrists, tugging them toward the porch. Everybody in the house. Now. They crossed the muddy lot, their steps muffled, hearts thundering louder than their footfalls. The cabin loomed larger with each stride, its darkness pressing on them, daring them closer. The porch creaked under their weight as they mounted the steps. Lope raised the knife instinctively, though it looked pitifully small in his hand. Kevin reached for the door, expecting it to be locked. He turned the doorknob, and, to his surprise, found it unlocked. Go, go, go. Kevin shoved the door wider and herded them through, closing it after Lope crossed the threshold. Inside, the darkness welcomed them with the air smelled faintly of old wood smoke. Their flashlight beams cut through in slices, revealing the various furnitures in the living room: a couch, a couple of reading chairs, a coffee table, the hulking shadow of a fireplace, the faint traces of two hallways leading deeper into the belly of the house. Familiar things, rendered alien by their silence. Sheila's hand hovered near the switch by the door, but Kate slapped her hand away. Not a good idea, sis, Kate said. Sheila's cheeks blushed red. Sorry. Force of habit. Stay away from the door and windows, Lope ordered. Sheila, Kate, and Vivian scurried behind the couch like puppies hiding from a thunderstorm. The cushions loomed over them like a barricade, threadbare but reassuring. Lope and Kevin laid down on the floor next to the coffee table and stayed very still, fearing that even their thundering hearts and ragged breaths would alert the pack of predators stalking them from outside. They listened so hard the silence became a roaring torrent against their ears. The house creaked, settling against the gentle breeze, and every pop of the wood sounded like a footstep or a gunshot. They didn't hear the howls anymore, but that didn't mean the werewolves had left them alone. After a long, taut moment, Lope rose slowly and crawled toward the nearest window. He tugged the curtain aside a careful inch, breath held, and peered into the clearing. Again, nothing. Lope let the curtain fall. I don't see anything out there. Relief washed over them, spared another moment to breathe. Sheila leaned her head against Kate's shoulder, whispering, "We're gonna be okay, right?" But Kate didn't have the guts to answer her. Vivian hugged her knees tighter, but her eyes no longer darted with rabbit terror. Kevin straightened his back, chest swelling with confidence. He glanced around the room, nodding with approval from what he had seen. "Listen up," he said, still whispering, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "We got real fucking lucky finding this place. Let's make sure it's safe. We make sure we lock everything, okay? Windows, doors, whatever you find that those things can get into." They moved with newfound purpose, splitting off into the cabin like roaches. Kate checked the back door, fingers fumbling at the latch until it clicked shut with satisfying finality. Sheila moved through the hallway, tugging curtains closed, rattling knobs to test them. Vivian crept upstairs, latching each window one by one. Kevin closed the shutters, and Lope made sure to take account of all the weapons he could find around the cabin and piled all of them on the dining table. They gathered back at the dining room. "None of the phones are working," Kate reported, much to everyone's disappointment. Kevin wasn't. "What do we do now?" Sheila asked. "I think we just sit tight." "That's all we can do right now, really," Kevin said. "We have the advantage here and I can see ourselves protecting this cabin until dawn, and then a broken bar we win the game." "And will that be enough?" Kate asked, doubtful. "There's 4 of them and 5 of us, and they're pretty strong, Kev. It's like a bunch of rabbits fighting off an enraged bear." "Why don't we make it harder for them then? We're just as tough." Kevin gestured to the dining table. Lope found some useful stuff around the house. "Everyone grab a weapon. I need you all armed. If those werewolves get in, at least we can fight back, maybe even make them regret it. I've got first dibs on this one," Lope said. He grabbed the pump-action shotgun, the kind that had seen better days but probably still worked. 12 gauge, dark walnut stock, nicked and oil blackened where 100 palms had gripped it. He found it at the second floor in one of the closets, one of the loot drops scattered across the dungeon. The pump slid back with a pleasant, mechanical click when Lope tested it. It smelled faintly of oil and age. It was far better than the silver knife he had, but he was saving that for emergencies. He was sure a couple of buckshots right on the chest was going to make the werewolves think twice of attacking him. It might not kill them, but at least it would give them enough time to run away. There were also kitchen knives, a baseball bat, a couple of fire pokers from the fireplace, 2 fire extinguishers, a hatchet, and a bundle of ropes from the back room. Sheila took the chef's knife, Kate grabbed the baseball bat, and Vivian chose the hatchet. Kevin didn't bother with any of them, trusting the gun in his hand. "So, here's the plan," Kevin started. "Someone has to stay by the window on the second floor's master bedroom as our lookout. It has a better vantage point than anywhere in the house. The rest of us, we stay by the TV room. It's central to the house on the ground floor and there aren't any windows in there." "Yeah, but it only has one exit," Kate said, not liking that part of the plan. "Better than staying near the windows for one of those things to peer through and grab us," Kevin said. "What about the library?" "It's small, but I think I saw a computer in there." "Can't we call the police from there?" Lope asked. "It's not working," Vivian said. "I mean, it is, but I think it needs a password. It keeps putting me on the same screen and asking me if I want to play a game or something. I just turned it off. I didn't want the screen lights to attract the werewolves outside, and the room gives me the creeps. Feels like I'm being watched," Sheila interjected. "I like the TV room plan better. Seems like we're still cut off from the outside world, so it's still down to us to survive," Kevin said. "One or two should check around the perimeter every 15 minutes. Make sure the windows and doors remain locked. If you hear or see anything funny or weird, you warn the others. You all understand?" They all nodded. "Good." Dawn's only 4, maybe 5 hours away. It's not a long wait, but it ain't no picnic either. "What if there's no reward?" Sheila asked. "What if our broken bar? What if that woman, or monster, whatever you call her, was just screwing with us?" Kevin thought about it for a moment, but then shook his head. "Still the same, baby. We wait for daylight and then maybe we can start planning on how to get the hell out of this forest." "Why aren't we attacking?" Xavier's voice was a wet snarl, his muscle trembling with hunger. He had been pacing in the undergrowth, claws carving little channels into the mud. "We have been watching the cabin for more than half an hour. They are in there. My sister is in there. I can smell their fear." Alan did not answer right away. His eyes were on the cabin, not focusing on the shape of the logs or the cracked shingles, but something behind the wood, inside, where his comrades slumbered. Alan turned his head, and even in the dark Xavier shrank from the ancient yellow eyes of his. "There's 2 in there," Alan said. His voice was steady, calm, like a schoolteacher explaining fractions. "Oracle and the demon." "So what?" Xavier pawed at the ground like a nervous bull. "They're meat. They're scared meat. Let's go in and eat before they bolt." Alan's lips peeled back, showing teeth. "Patience, whelp. You'll follow my lead or you'll follow your guts hanging from a branch." "Understood?" That shut Xavier up, though he still twitched in place. Alan went quiet again, staring at the house. The werewolves knew that Oracle and Demon had struck a mutual pact in sharing the cabin as their lair. After all, it was the heart of the domain, the first structure erected in this new home, and sometimes, the archetypes can be sentimental. Oracle was more than content with sharing one since he's already doing double duty trying to block all communications to the outside world, setting up all the scenarios for success by gathering the Delvers, and also helping other archetypes as their personal monster-killing assistant. Both Demon and Oracle had been good friends from the beginning, if friendship could ever be found in a dark and unforgiving place such as this, but the Sawyer brothers could hardly ignore the bond between the dungeon's first archetypes, which Alan had admitted a couple of times to being jealous of. I was also curious on why Alan waited, and so I floated close to him, and asked, "Really? Tell me. Why are you not attacking them?" Alan was quiet for a moment. "Resolve, my lord." "Resolve?" "Hunting and hurting them won't be enough." "To shed resolve quickly before daybreak," Alan said. "I need something a broken bar more potent." I get it now." My gaze returned to the cabin too. Demon was one of my strongest archetypes in the dungeon and one of my greatest asset. Of all the archetypes, they were the most dangerous and the most consummate butcher of resolve, death, and suffering. If I was in the Delver's shoes, they were the one monster I refused to face. I knew how they operated, how adept they were at inflicting unnecessary and over-the-top violence only a resident of hell could deliver. I'd probably off myself before I even opened any archetype doors at the selection chamber. Demon's aura and methods always drained the Delver's resolve faster than any other archetype in the dungeon. To face them was almost a death sentence. Alan was smart enough to know it. He was waiting for the Delvers inside the cabin to make a mistake of summoning the entity. Because the demon always set the bait. They had a flair for theater, that one. They always loved to play their games, didn't want to attack the plain and boring way. No, they wanted to be asked. They'd planted their little toys in there. Cursed relics dressed up like props from a drive-in horror flick, the cursed Black's book made out of human and pig flesh, the creepy VHS tape, and the dusty old Ouija board, all humming with that promise, "Pick me, play me, I'll make it frighteningly fun." They craved the theatrics of it all. Someone had seen too many horror movies as of late, which was partially my fault. The archetypes had taken inspiration from my favorite collection. I'd told Demon once they didn't need to go through all of this effort if either the selection or an unfortunate delver stumbled onto their lair. Just go in swinging and hunt the delvers. But that wasn't their way. They wanted the delvers to choose the hangman's rope themselves, knot it, and slip it over their own pretty necks. And inside, Vivian just found the hangman's noose. Vivian found the tapes. Vivian squatted in front of the media cabinet. Dust coated the wood, thick enough to draw her name in, and for a second she thought of her mom hollering at her for getting into things she shouldn't, or for touching her father's prized Star Wars collection. But that was back when she was 9 or 10. Back when she thought her parents were saints. Back before everything. There were tapes stacked in neat little bricks, labels scrawled in Sharpie or peeling off. Top Gun, Betelgeuse, Deep Impact, Milan, and The Parent Trap, among many others. She pored through them, not really looking for anything, just killing time. She turned around to see Kate still sitting by the reading chair, a thick blanket swaddled over her, asleep and snoring quietly. She had been in that same position for the past 25 minutes now, and Vivian couldn't summon the strength to sleep in a time like this. Not when there's monsters outside the house. Lope was upstairs taking the first watch and Kevin was out patrolling around the house, making sure none of the werewolves decided to go near any of the windows or doors. Sheila left a couple of minutes ago to the bathroom so that she could wash the blood and dirt off her face. Then she saw it. Her hand froze on a black cassette with a label that didn't look quite right. Welcome Yates family. Her heart did a little belly flop. She turned the tape in her hands and told herself it was nothing, just a funny coincidence and it belonged to a different Yates. But she knew better. There were so few people in town named Yates. As far as she knew, they were the only ones. The tape was calling her. She grabbed it from the pile and slid it into the VCR with a faint plastic snick. The TV was connected to a VHS, DVD, and Blu-ray player, but at least her time hanging out at Grandma's house for the past few years and a whole year with the Avenue Club in middle school paid off because she knew how to operate the VHS. The machine whirred to life, a mechanical little growl that made her flinch. The TV screen bloomed into static, then cleared to an image that nearly stopped her heart. Her parents, Ashley and David Yates, stood in what looked like somebody's living room, arms linked, beaming like newlyweds. Behind them, people clapped. A small crowd, faces she knew were faces she recognized. Coach Hodge, grinning handsomely. His wife Melanie, her hair teased high, clapping along. More neighbors, more townsfolk, more people she had known her whole damn life. Now, all dead in the massacre. Vivian's throat closed. She watched her parents bow their heads as a funny-looking black book was pressed into their hands. Definitely not the Bible. The crowd cheered, hands rising, some in prayer, some chanting. It couldn't be real. It wasn't real. Her parents had been victims, framed by the cult, swallowed up by lies and lunacy of the town, desperate to blame anyone they disliked and pinned the massacre on them. That's the truth she desperately wanted to believe. They weren't a broken bar. They weren't smiling and enjoying all of this, weren't taking strange vows, and weren't joining hands with the killers. Except here they were. And she could see the bizarre joy in their faces. Her fingers dug into her thighs until her nails bit through the denim. She wanted to vomit, wanted to run, but she couldn't look away. She found more tapes. Kevin, she shouted, voice cracking. Kate, Lope, Sheila, you need to see this. You need to. The words broke off as the tape went on, the crowd's chant rising in warped chorus. Welcome, Yates. Welcome. Welcome to the family. I enjoyed the look of horror plastered on Vivian's face as the realization dawned on what her had done. These videos on the tapes were all fake, of course. This has Oracle's fingerprints all over it. Oracle could craft a totally fake scene or reality from as simple as a CCTV camera feed to as elaborate as a fake scene within an already released movie. In minutes, he produced something so realistic the police or other internet sleuths couldn't even tell the difference. Half of those evidence were heavily used against the cult's case for the massacre. At Demon's request, Oracle made these tapes for them, tailoring the videos with Demon's abyssal guidance and morbid ideas to the nature of its contents. Vivian took out another tape from the cabinet and slid one in. Kevin had walked the same circuit 3 times now, both porches, the back window and the front, the kitchen doors, the windows by the dining area and the library, and then looped back to the front. He didn't catch any movement outside nor in the forest. That was what worried him. Werewolves were like animals, right? So what the hell were they waiting for? Staying in this cabin was like a very big target. It should tempt their attackers to at least try and lay siege, right? So far, he hadn't seen any of that. Kevin realized this entire mountain was making him crazy and swore never to return here again. He paused by the fireplace, sweat itching under his collar. When his boot caught on the frayed edge of the rug, he swore under his breath and stooped to fix it, then froze. The rug had slipped back just far enough to show the square outline of a trapdoor. What in the hell? Kevin muttered under his breath. Kevin crouched, brushing some of the dirt off it with his hand, and his stomach sank. It was really the entrance to the cellar. Christ, we hadn't checked the cellar. If there was an entry point anywhere inside, it might be down there. The latch came up with a groan, and Kevin pulled the door open, a damp draft rising from below. The wooden steps looked soft with rot, but they held his weight as he crept down, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The cellar was nothing special at first. Stone walls slick with moisture, racks of old jars clouded with filth, a rusty bike missing its front wheel, some old furnitures, decorations, and other random stuff stored here and left to be forgotten by the cabin's owners. He was pretty sure he spotted the outline of a very old boiler that must be at least 60 years old. Kevin swept the beam along the far wall, and saw a door there. His breath caught in his throat. He didn't know why, but a strange feeling suddenly seized his knees as if he had seen that door before. He pressed a hand to it. The wood felt dry and solid, and his palm tingled a little when he slid them down toward the doorknob, like the surface grain was breathing under his skin. The knob turned easily enough, and Kevin pushed the door open. What lay beyond knocked the senses out of him. The cellar dissolved into stone, cut smooth and black, a vault stretching wider than the cabin itself had any right or ceiling space to have. A chamber lay waiting with a high ceiling arched above like a domed cathedral. In the center, perched on a faintly glowing pedestal, sat the familiar tall hourglass, its sand pouring into a large pile to the bottom. Kevin staggered back, struck dumb, and the beam of his flashlight wobbled across the chamber walls that were carved with odd sigils, drawings of faces, and other things he didn't have names for. He went down on his ass, back scraping the damp stone, lungs heaving like he'd sprinted a mile. What the fuck? What the actual fuck? This was the vault. This was Henry's vault. This was supposed to be miles behind him at a totally different corner of the mountain. Why was it here? He stared at the werewolf door on the far side, wide open. The silhouettes of their wax-like doppelganger currencies slightly visible from where he had fallen. He wanted to scream for the others, but his throat had closed up as fear grappled him. And then, slashing sharp through his terror, Vivian's voice carried down from upstairs, urgently calling their names. Kevin scrambled to his feet, one last look at the hourglass before slamming the vault door and the cellar door shut behind him, as if that might keep the impossible room sealed away forever. The VCR made that soft, mechanical cough as Vivian pushed the next tape in. The digital grainy snow on the screen cleared, lines rolling upward until a steady image formed. She sat cross-legged on the carpet in front of the TV. Kevin came in just then, looking like he'd seen a ghost. His eyes darted around unfocused, like he was still down there in whatever hole he'd stumbled into. He wanted to forget that room. Kate noticed immediately. What the heck happened to you? Nothing. The word rolled out of his tongue too fast. He dropped into one of the lounging chairs, elbows on knees, trying to steady his breathing. Don't worry about it. Did you fall or something? She looked down at the dirty marks on his pants when he fell. I said don't worry about it. Lope gave him a long, curious look but said nothing. Kate just rolled her eyes and regarded Vivian again. Okay, what did you wake me up for? I might have found something. She gestured to the cabinet beneath the TV. Its doors were still open, showing a neat row of VHS tapes, DVDs, and Blu-ray boxes. There's a whole set of them. I got bored and decided to peruse their collection, And I found all this weird stuff. They're probably like old family vacation and holiday videos or something, Lope said. And who the heck uses VHS tapes anymore? You know how to use these? I was in the Avenue Club once in middle school, Vivian admitted. It was for extra credit. The screen flickered, the sound of Coach Hodges' familiar drawl rising out of the speakers. He was maybe 5 years younger, though not bummy hair, fuller and with a moustache instead of a beard. He stood before a semicircle of people in some kind of seance room. Behind him, a chalkboard scrawled with symbols and crude diagrams peeked over his shoulder. Tonight, Hodge was saying, we call upon Astaroth, Lord of Hell, Keeper of Knowledge and Secrets. He had the cultists repeat the words, the camera jerking as if whoever was holding it couldn't keep their hands still. Lope frowned, leaning closer. Who the fuck is Astaroth? Kate corrected him and shrugged, not having a clue. The demonstration ended with Hodge lifting his hand. A knife, glinting under the overhead fluorescence, floated 6 inches above his palm. Gasps rose from the circle of cultists. Then a glass bowl rose too, dangling in the air like a puppet on invisible strings. The tape whirred to an end and to a black screen. The delvers couldn't believe what Coach Hodge had done, too. I had seen him personally use magic, but I kept forgetting how shocking it was to the mortals of Earth when they witnessed it firsthand. Vivian pushed in another tape. Kevin wanted to say number, wanted to tell her to leave it, but the words wouldn't come, and so he watched her feed the tape into the hungry slot, and the VCR swallowed it down. This one didn't open with Hodge's lessons or another footage of a backyard gathering, the cult's version of the BBQ Sunday brunch. Instead, the screen snapped to a shaky camera panning across a dark chamber. Hodge, again, eyes glowing with fanatic heat, was surrounded by his ardent supporters, including Vivian's parents. Then, the camera tilted down. There was a bound girl, maybe 15 or 16. She tried to crawl, but the cultists, wearing dark hoods and robes, held her firm. They all carried ornate-looking knives which they used to butcher her, quick and furious, one blade going down after the other. Her screams thudded against the gag. When her body sagged, Ashley Yates leaned forward with calm hands and scooped one of the girl's eyes and placed it into a jar filled with translucent liquid. "Mama, broken bar?" Vivian whispered. The tape cut again to another scene, clearly from another night. The footage in this tape were spliced together. This time, it was a boy of about 12 with his mouth taped shut, begging behind the gag for the cultists not to hurt him. They killed him anyway. The camera lingered on the knives rising and falling, the sound of blades slicing meat. A scream tore loose under the tape, muffled, then cut short. When his head lolled, 2 of the cultists leaned in with practiced hands. They plucked his eyes, his tongue, and the camera followed the dripping organs being placed into another set of jars. The third cutaway showed another boy, much older, probably around 17 or 18. He fought until his wrists bled through the ropes. He managed to get the binds off his mouth and bit one of the cultists' hand, but all that earned him was a hard punch on the face from Mr. Gamble that knocked him out cold. They stabbed him harder, longer, until his body twitched no more. Someone lifted his head and sawed, clean and ugly, until his tongue came free. Another set of jars. Another prize. Kevin's hands gripped the armrest so hard his knuckles went white. He recognized David, his brother, in every frame sporting the maniacal grin of a believer as he cut and hacked those children to death. He was never the victim Kevin thought he was. Vivian sat on the carpet, knees pulled close to her chest, rocking ever so slightly. Her lips moved but no sound came as she watched her parents leaned into the firelight again on the fourth cutaway, the murder of another girl that awfully looked like her when she was 13. The tapes only showed these 4 murders, and mine, but the cultists murdered several others before they got to me. I didn't have an accurate count of how many they had killed. The last confirmed count was 4 ritual killings, and I was the 5th. It was possible there could be more they buried in the woods. After all, Hodge had joined the cult since he was young, and Jonas groomed him to be a powerful sorcerer when Earth has a notoriously weak magical way lines and conduits seeping into the planet. Throughout all of this, Kate had her hand over her mouth, not just because of the Kings though Christ almighty, that was fucking rough to watch her, but something deep in her gut prickled what the cabin represented. "Oh my God," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hiss of the VCR. "It's here." Lope glanced at her. "What?" "Thesa, this is the place where it happened. The massacre." She gestured with a trembling hand around the room. "We're in the same fucking cabin." "Wait, a broken bar? You mean the Cedar Lake massacre?" Lope also whirled round, eyes darting to every corner. "Didn't the police tore it down?" Kevin stood so fast his chair shrieked against the floorboards. "That's enough," he said. "Vivian, stop the goddamn tape." Vivian didn't move at first. Her eyes were fixed on the screen. Kevin came around the coffee table and crouched beside her, placing a hand on her trembling shoulder. Her skin was cold and clammy. "Viv," he said, "softer now. Stop it. Let's not watch this anymore." "The broken bar, they killed them." "Mum, Dad, they did it." "Uncle." "Yeah, broken bar, I was wrong. They're monsters." "We don't know that." "Look at it." A tear fell down her cheek as she pointed at the images on the screen. "Look at it." Suddenly, the static cut sharp and instant. The next image flickered into being of another fire, another chamber, and another bound figure. But this one they all recognized. Mark Castle, the local boy from town who'd gone missing 3 months ago. Vivian's hand snapped back to her mouth and gasped. "That's Mark." The tape's sound was clearer this time. The chanting was low and rhythmic, the camera swaying slightly as if the person holding it finally learned how to handle a camera. "They did what they did before, slicing and stabbing Mark, the fake version of me, Anaway, and killed him." I looked away. Seeing a reenactment of my murder like that still twisted my guts. Demon had a sixth sense of tribute when she told me about this. The cultists circled him, the camera catching flashes of ecstatic faces. Coach Hodges' mouth gaped open, chanting like a man possessed. Someone in the back began laughing. "I can't fucking take this anymore." "Turn it off," Kate hissed. "Vivian, turn it off." But none of them dared to move, transfixed to the screen. After I was dead, the cultists turned to Hodge and formed sort of a prayer circle around my fake digital body. Coach Hodge stood in the center, knife dripping. For a moment, he just stared down at Mark, then lifted his face toward the others. And then he spoke. "Dureth the broken bar." The word rippled out of the television like a stone dropped in water. The sound reverberated as if the walls of the cabin themselves had caught the vibration and amplified it. "Yaraka broken bar." Outside, the trees swayed from a strong gust of wind. The surface of the nearby lake puckered, then went still again, as if something beneath it had stirred and settled back down. "Astraga broken bar." A low and heavy hum passed through the floorboards. Kevin took a step forward. "Okay, that's enough." He jabbed the stop button on the VCR, but the tape kept rolling and rolling. He tried to push the button again, but the screen never cut to black. "What the fuck?" "Ambiencalia broken bar." Outside, in the woods beyond the cabin, the werewolves lifted their snouts in unison. The syllables reached them like an intoxicating scent. Where Luke's eyes rolled back, his jaws splitting into a grin of pure animal delight. The others said nothing, but their claws dug deep into the earth, trembling with anticipation. Back inside, the word made the TV rattle against the wall. Kevin crouched from behind and yanked the plug from the socket, causing sparks to fly, but the scene stayed on the TV. He lifted the cable up for the others to see. "This TV shouldn't be working right now. This TV should be dead." "Indoctu Nosferatu's a broken bar." Now even the wind had joined in the symphony, keening through the chinks in the walls, circling the house like something sniffing for a way in. Inside, Vivian, Lope and Kate backed away from the TV. Kevin shook the TV, and shouted, "Stop, stop." "Ave. A broken bar." "A broken bar, Asheroth." The last word hit like a hammer blow. The sound cracked through the house, rolled out across the clearing, and vanished into the woods. Then, silence. The television went dead, the screen collapsing into a black square that reflected 5 pale faces back at themselves. The sudden silence was heavier, so heavy you could almost hear everyone's breaths and heartbeats. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Kate broke the stillness. "Where's my sister?" Lope blinked. She went to clean up in the upstairs bathroom, I think." "That's the last place I left her." "Upstairs." Sheila leaned over the sink, staring at herself in the mirror, and barely recognized the woman looking back. What little mascara she put had melted into faint smoky tracks, her cheeks were blotched and streaked with grime, and the dried blood at the corner of her mouth had turned a deep, rusted brown. She let the faucet run just to hear something. Anything. The sound of water trickling was the only noise that didn't make her skin crawl. The steady hiss drowned out the pounding in her ears, the memory of the howls in the trees, the crack of bones, the screams that Nina, Daryl, and Ray made before they died. She washed her face and scrubbed at it with a hand towel she found on the rack until her skin burned pink. She'd raided the medicine cabinet and found a half-empty box of Band-Aids. She pressed one onto the raw skin at her elbow, around the cut on her left middle finger, and another on her knee. After all that, she sat down on the toilet lid, arms wrapped around herself, and let the tears come. Quiet at first with these little hiccups that made her shoulders shake. She'd been running for hours. It felt like running from the impossible. Now, sitting in the sterile brightness of this bathroom, it was all too much. The relief of safety hurt. The silence was even worse. Her resolve was a sweet dark red orange. And an orange resolve was ripe for a possession. Get a grip, she whispered to herself. Get it together. Behind her, the bathroom door slowly inched shut with a whispering creak. All the windows were closed and there was no wind to glide over until the latch clicked close. The woman inside never realized it moved. Sheila wiped at her eyes with the heel of her wrist and got back up. Get it together, she told herself again. Get it together. She opened the medicine cabinet again and found a half-used bottle of Tylenol. The label was curled and sticky, but she reckoned they were still good enough even though the label said it was a few months past the expiration date, and shook 2 tablets into her palm. She gulped them down, then she closed the cabinet. And Nina's face was there, peering over her shoulder. Rotten, mutilated, jaw hanging askew, eyes rolled white, teeth slick with blood. Her head twitched in the reflection, a marionette pulled by invisible strings. The skin of her neck was torn in long, wet strips. Sheila screamed and stumbled backward into the wall, clutching her chest. The Tylenol bottle clattered into the sink, bounced, and fell into the basin with a hollow plink, and the rest of the pills spilled out and down into the drain. The apparition lasted less than a heartbeat. When she looked again, Nina's ghost was gone. The mirror showed only Sheila, wild-eyed, hair clinging to her temples, a single tear tracking down her cheek. She took a deep breath. Oh my fucking god. Calm the fuck down. Are you fucking kidding me with this shit? She realized the bathroom door was closed and remembered that Vivian called for everyone to come downstairs earlier. Lope said he'd check it out, but he hadn't been back yet. Turning off the faucet, she walked toward the door, but it was locked. Sheila frowned, twisted the knob again. Lope? Hey, Lope, I'm stuck in here. No one answered. She yanked harder, using both hands. The doorknob rattled, clinked against the inside plate, but the door didn't move. Didn't budge. FFFFFSSSSSSHHHHH. The faucet turned itself on again. The water came down in a steady stream, hissing with steam. Within seconds, the mirror fogged completely over. Sheila looked over her shoulder. What the hell, a broken bar? Then the shower head sputtered to life as well. The pipes coughed, choked, then erupted, hot water blasting down, filling the air with thick, suffocating steam. She reached for the shower control but yanked her arm back immediately. Some of the water splashed on the back of her hand and it was boiling. God damn it, she hissed, clutching her hand to her chest. Something moved from her periphery. At first it was just a subtle rustle of plastic. Then, before she could turn, the shower curtain lashed out for her. The plastic wrapped tight around her wrist with a snap and yanked her toward the tub. She fell to her knees, clawing at the curtain, but it was like wrestling something alive and with a mind of its own. The slick vinyl twisted around her arms, looped over her shoulder, and slithered across her throat and then tightened. Her scream came out strangled and desperate. Sheila tried to grab and claw at the fabric, to tear her arms and head free, but the harder she pulled, the tighter it cinched around her flesh. Her vision went watery as the air stank of sulfur and scorched hair. Then the towels came next. They slid off their racks one by one, serpentine-like, stretching impossibly longer and longer. They coiled around her legs, her waist, and hauling her upward like a writhing puppet. Her bare feet kicked helplessly, toes scraping the tiles. Help! Help me! Somebody! She screamed again and again, but no one downstairs could hear her, muffled by the demonic presence, blocking any sound from coming out of the bathroom. Demon has initiated the brutal process of Sheila's possession. Kate was just about to go check up on her with Kevin, both Delvers climbing up the stairs. Catching another movement, Sheila's gaze went to the mirror. Through the fog, her reflection looked wrong. It wasn't copying her movements or her position anymore, suspended in the air by the shower curtains and the towels. It was standing still, covered head to toe with mud, tangled hair, head cocked, eyes gleaming black through the condensation. Then it made a hideous and wide knowing smile, black liquid pouring out of her parted lips. Her reflection raised a mud-streaked hand and pressed it against the glass. A broken bar, and her finger went through it. No, a broken bar, Sheila choked out. No, a broken bar. The figure in the mirror leaned forward and pressed its face against the glass. The surface rippled like water and the thing began to push through into the real world. It emerged slow. Its hair hung in clotted strings, its skin glistening like it had just crawled out of the ground. Its grin didn't fade as it pushed through one dripping hand and grabbed hold of the sink's rim, and then pulling herself out of the mirror. Her reflection crawled toward her on all fours and then got up, stopping inches from her face. That awful grin splitting wider. Then it grabbed its own jaw and pulled down hard, unhinging its mouth wide open to expose the back of their throat. A torrent of black, muddy water shot out and blasted Sheila's screaming face. Sheila's body convulsed as the black liquid poured into her and forced its way down her throat. Her eyes rolled back. Her legs kicked once, twice, and then went very still. The steam swallowed the entire bathroom whole,